Imagine a quiet night, the world around you finally slowing down, a soft breeze passing through the windows, shadows resting across your room as you settle into a calm, peaceful moment. In that silence, a name begins to float gently across history, a name almost forgotten by most, yet known by heaven itself. Enoch. We live in a world where countless voices are loud, where fame, power, and noise fill every corner. Yet Enoch, he lived quietly. He lived in a time when the earth was still young, when the sky felt closer, and when heaven's secrets whispered through the air. No grand armies, no golden crown, no empire written under his rule. Still, his story traveled farther than kings and survived longer than monuments carved in stone. Who was this man whose footsteps led him beyond the sky? Long before the flood, long before Noah built his great ark, long before humanity found itself lost in corruption, Enoch walked the earth. A simple man, a husband, a father, someone who laughed around a warm home, someone who looked up at the stars with wonder in his eyes, someone who felt the weight of life yet chose a different path than those around him. The world of his time was changing, drifting away from what was good. Darkness crept slowly into hearts. Giants were yet to be born. The watchers had not yet descended, but shadows were stretching. People were forgetting the one who breathed life into dust. Enoch did something rare. He remembered. He chose closeness with the Creator when everyone else chased the earth. He chose stillness when others ran after chaos. He chose a walk, not just with his feet, but with his spirit. His life became a quiet conversation with heaven, one step at a time. There are only a few lines about him in the widely read Bible. He walked with God, and then he was no more. This sentence alone holds a lifetime of awe. No explanation, no details. Just a mystery left hanging for those who hunger for deeper understanding. A man who did not face death like the rest of the world. A man who simply went home. What does it take for a human being to be lifted beyond the grave? What does it take to be so close to the divine that earth can no longer hold you? Those questions allow our hearts to wander. Maybe that is why Enoch's name still stirs the soul. He is proof that a single life, lived with simple faith, can leave a mark stronger than any kingdom. His story reached across thousands of years, through ancient texts guarded in deserts and mountains, through scrolls hidden from the world, through whispers in languages that faded away. Yet Enoch's voice refused to disappear, because heaven remembered. Enoch was not just a character in history. He was chosen to witness what no other human had seen. He was taken into the heights of creation. He was shown the places where stars are born. He walked through realms beyond imagination. He saw angels, mysteries of time, and the destiny of the world. He was given messages that would shape understanding forever. His writings, though lost for a long time, have reappeared. They speak of courage, warnings, hope, and the promise of a coming Savior. And they invite us to slow down and imagine a world beyond our eyes. In our busy lives, where worries fill our days and screens fill our nights, maybe we need Enoch's quiet footsteps more than ever. His path reminds us that peace and miracles are found away from noise. They are found in stillness, in choosing goodness when others choose the easy way, in daring to look up. You are about to drift into an ancient journey, a path lit by stars and guarded by angels. A story that begins with a humble man who simply kept walking until heaven opened As you listen tonight, let your heart rest. Let your breathing soften. Let curiosity replace stress. Picture a sky without city lights, filled with countless stars. The way Enoch would have seen them. Feel that calm spreading through you. Feel the wonder returning. His story is not just old. It is alive. It still speaks to anyone who feels different from the world around them. Anyone who chooses kindness while others choose power. Anyone who hopes even when darkness grows. Anyone who quietly walks in faith because, maybe, somewhere deep inside, there is still a part of you that longs to hear heaven whisper, so close your eyes a little slower, let go of whatever the day brought, and allow Enoch's ancient steps to guide you into a realm suspended between earth and sky. Tonight, you walk with him before we continue this peaceful journey together. I want to personally invite you to stay connected with this channel. It helps keep these calming ancient stories alive. If you are enjoying this moment, take a second to subscribe. It tells us you want more peaceful nights like this. And I would love to know, what is your name? Which city are you watching from? And what time is it for you right now? Write it gently in the comments below. Your presence here matters now. Let your mind drift softly. The night is just beginning. As the mind settles into this old world, the night gets darker. You just walked next to Enoch and felt what it's like to be close to heaven. The scene is now bigger. We slowly move to the world he lived in. A time before there were any big kingdoms, before the flood cleaned up the earth, and before the Bible was written. But something dark had started to move under its new soil and starry sky. People were still young. Families were getting bigger. The kids of Adam and Eve had traveled a long way. They made homes out of clay from the ground and lit fires when the sun went down. At night, people sang songs, laughter echoed over the fields, and hope filled the hearts of people who hadn't yet felt the heavy weight of history. Life was easy. People worked with their hands, and every time they got a harvest, it felt like a gift. But even then, there was a quiet fight in the hearts of all people. A brother's jealousy was the first sign that peace was breaking down when Cain raised his hand against Abel. One painful act opened a door that would never fully close again. Some people, like Enoch, who walked with God, chose to be kind. Some people let their pride grow because they wanted more power, land, and control. Rivers of ambition started to flow through neighborhoods. People's hearts were moving away from what was pure. A lot of time went by. Some people lived for almost 1,000 years. Imagine a world where a man remembers his great-grandchildren, where stories are told by the people who lived them, and where knowledge isn't lost over time. It could have been a great time. It could have been a world full of peace. But wanting to be great can blind the soul. People learnt to take instead of give. Family ties were strained. Greed whispered to them like a cold wind snaking into their homes. There were times when someone would look up at the sky and feel like God had forgotten them. Hearts that are chasing their own wants don't often stop to listen for heaven's voice. Enoch saw these things happen. He saw how easy it was for someone to forget about being good. A dishonest deal here, a harsh word there, and then a whole life full of selfishness. Violence, which was once unthinkable, became normal. People stopped trusting each other. People were afraid. Celebrations even changed. Music used to bring people together, but now competition has crept into their gatherings. They talked about their kids, their fields, and their strength. Who could be stronger? Who could build higher? who could take anything they wanted and not get in trouble. Darkness likes to grow slowly. The ground under them was rich and generous, but their hearts were never at peace, even when their hands were full. They wanted more than what the earth could give them. Some people even started to doubt the heavens. Why should they listen to a God they couldn't see? Why follow rules that kept them from getting what they wanted? Why walk humbly like Enoch when pride made things easier and louder? The times changed. Many people found the idea of goodness strange. People who stayed faithful looked like flickering candles in a long hallway of darkness. People made fun of things they didn't understand. The voices that used to pray to God now sang for themselves. People came to a crossroads, and while people fought, argued, and bragged about how great they were, the real threat was getting closer. Something that wasn't planned, something that would change the course of history. A choice made high up in the sky. A choice made by beings who saw the earth from places of bright light. The watchers, or children of heaven, would soon come down. They were just watching for now. They saw people fall into jealousy and violence. The eternal beings felt their curiosity grow. Why do people have such a hard time? What is this desire that leads them off course? Why does love hurt so much? The earth felt heavier as corruption spread. The ground was stained with blood. Every morning brought new wounds and new victims of what people had done. The whisper of darkness got louder than the whisper of God. When someone looked at their neighbor, they no longer saw a brother or sister. They saw someone in their way. The world of the early days started to break, but Enoch stood out from the rest of the noise and changing morals. A reminder of what it means to be human. He looked up at the sky when others yelled and raised their fists, while other people were drowning in their material wants. He found peace in the quiet presence of God. He became a mirror that showed what people had lost. Sometimes, people who want peace feel like they don't belong in their own home. Enoch's life showed that even in a world full of chaos, you could still choose love. His family could feel the love of a man who really cared. His neighbors may not have understood him, but some people felt better when they saw him walk calmly. He had something that couldn't be shaken, he still couldn't ignore. What was happening in the world? Mums started to worry about what would happen to their kids in the future. The old people would look at their people and whisper their regrets. The strong took advantage of the weak. Leaders came to power who only cared about themselves. The wicked were no longer ashamed. The innocent hardly slept, wondering if tomorrow would bring peace or another wound. And the watchers kept watching. What they saw made them make a choice. Maybe people needed help, because they kept falling into darkness, even though they had so much potential for greatness, learning, strength, getting it. They started to think they could help people and even change them. They were wrong, for now. The world was heading towards a storm that no one could see. Clouds were forming that no one could see yet. Every violent act, selfish choice, and corrupt heart made the sky heavier. Something big and unavoidable was on its way. The great flood would not happen all at once. It would grow out of years of making choices and years of forgetting the one who gave life. Before that disaster, before the sky opened up and the waters swallowed the earth, this world was still alive and fighting. It was a world on the edge of hope and destruction. A world where the light went out. A world that wants to be healed. A world that didn't know its biggest test was coming up soon, and Enoch still walked in the quiet places. He lived a quiet life. He didn't wear a crown. No armies marched when he told them to. He didn't have any big cities named after him. Enoch walked among regular people, sharing the same dusty ground and breathing in the morning air that rose from the ground like a sigh. His neighbors didn't think he was anything special. They knew him as a kind man who spoke softly, was always kind, and was always there for them. He was a husband and maybe a father who hugged little hands that reached up to him. His laughter wasn't loud, but it was real, like a song that made other people feel safe. It looked like he had a secret that only heaven knew about in his eyes. Enoch didn't follow the noise in a world that was slowly drowning in pride and violence. He heard nothing. He was listening for God. Others spent their nights looking for power and pleasure, but he spent his nights looking at the stars and wondering what was behind the shimmering lights above. Even though the ground beneath his feet was getting hard with selfishness, his heart stayed soft. He wouldn't let the world change him into what it wanted him to be. Instead, he let the unseen shape him. People around him might have said, "Why don't you live like everyone else? Why do you pick a road that doesn't go anywhere you know?" Enoch just kept walking, picking the way that made him feel at peace, even if it meant leaving behind people who admired him. He wasn't weak because he was humble. It was a quiet strength that people don't notice until it's gone. He had a lot of feelings, but he didn't show them very often. He would cry when he saw cruelty, even before anyone else knew how much pain was going on around them. He gave away what little he had when he saw someone who was hungry. People felt better when he was around. Kids believed in him. The old people blessed him. Even the wild animals that were roaming the plains seemed to calm down when he passed by. Something about him smelt like heaven, a reminder of what people were always meant to be. Enoch would sometimes leave his village at night to be alone under the moonlit sky. The grass brushed against his ankles. The wind blew through the trees like an angel's harp. He would stand alone in the quiet, with only the stars to see him. During those sacred times, he spoke from the heart, not with rehearsed prayers, but with real desire. He wanted to know the one who made everything, not because he wanted power or an advantage, but because he wanted closeness, friendship, and the truth. He wasn't always free of tiredness. The change in people was hard for him. He saw neighbors fighting, brothers turning against each other, and strangers getting cold. He felt the stress of a world getting closer to darkness every day. Sometimes his steps got heavy. He sometimes wondered if his quiet devotion made any difference at all. Doing the right thing can make you feel more alone than any knife. But whenever he felt like giving up, Enoch remembered something too important to lose. He thought of love. He remembered that God had not given up on making things. He thought about how every breath was a gift from a creator who kept his word. That memory gave him strength. He kept going down the right path, not because it was easy, but because his heart knew it was where he belonged. Picture him coming home after a long day to warm light and voices he knows. His family and friends may not have known how heavy the burden he was carrying was, or how the visions were starting to come to him in his dreams, but they did know how warm he was. They knew he loved them because of the small things he did for them. Enoch was the kind of person who would fix a broken tool, whisper comfort to a scared child, and stop to admire the sunrise even when everyone else was too busy to notice. He didn't talk the loudest at gatherings, but when he finally did, people listened. People had to pay attention to what he said because it was so sincere. He would remind people of the good things their hearts had forgotten. He would talk about God as if he were a friend he had spent time with. A lot of people didn't really get him. Some people were inspired. Some people were confused. A few people were scared of how pure his life was, because it showed them their own dark sides, he still didn't judge. He knew that everyone was fighting a secret battle. He knew that everyone, even him, had times when they were weak. Like a soft light on the darkest nights, compassion led him. You can't always see what makes someone special from the outside. Sometimes the bravest heroes don't make a sound. They whisper. Their wins are not set in stone, but in people's hearts. Enoch's faithfulness was what made him strong. He stayed when others left. Enoch remembered when everyone else forgot the Creator. He walked with God every day, step by step, through ordinary fields and simple tasks. It was a friendship that no one else could see, but it was more real than the ground he stood on. On some nights, the stars seemed brighter, as if heaven was getting a little closer to earth. Enoch felt someone next to him at those times. A voice that doesn't make any noise, a hand that doesn't have a shape, a love that has no conditions. Heaven saw him. Heaven knew him well. Heaven loved him. While the rest of the world rushed into sin, heaven stopped when Enoch prayed. He wasn't trying to be perfect on his journey. He walked on trust. Have faith in the one who sees the wind lift the seeds to new life. Believe in the one who hears the sighs that no one else does. Put your faith in the one who saw a quiet man among millions and chose him to bring a message from God to a world that was losing its way. Enoch didn't know how heavy his calling would be yet, but his heart was already ready to carry it. Every little act of faith was getting him ready for talks with angels, visions of eternity, and a destiny that would be heard in the Bible and in time itself. The story of his life was just starting. Heaven was already writing something amazing behind the ordinary things in his life. And while everyone in his village slept, not knowing that a miracle was walking among them, Enoch kept walking with God in a kind way, never thinking about how far that walk would take him one day. Before corruption spread like a dark shadow over early humans, watchers stood guard at the edges of heaven. They were beings of light, made for a purpose that was more holy than anything else in the world. Their eyes were not like those of people. They could see deeper than just flesh and bone. They could see the intentions and possibilities of every soul. Their presence brought the light of dawn, which was warm and calming and reassured the earth that heaven still cared. The watchers were the name of these heavenly protectors. They were told to watch over Adam and Eve's children, to help people do good things without forcing them, and to protect without getting too involved. Heaven made it clear that they were not rulers or people who could change people's desires on earth. They were messengers of divine hope. Their job was to praise God's creation and make sure that the weak human race didn't stray too far from the path of life. They didn't come down in fiery chariots. They came down like light falling softly through the morning air. The world seemed to breathe easier when they walked across mountains and valleys. The flowers raised their heads. The sounds of rivers were softer. The songs of birds were brighter. Creation knew them because they had seen it come to life at the very beginning. They weren't mean people. Their strength was calm, and they had power because they loved. When a child cried because they were scared of the dark, a watcher would sometimes stay hidden, letting peace settle in their shaking heart. A watcher would see that hope and take it back to the heavens like a treasure when someone looked up at the stars and wondered if God was listening. These beings knew a lot about people. They could see the good in people even when they couldn't see it in themselves. People were not like angels. They fell. They got tired. They weren't sure. But they also loved very much. They made things. Even when things were hard today, they dreamed of tomorrow. The watchers thought that strength was amazing. It made them think of how beautiful the Creator is. Their wise leader would remind them of their mission to protect without pride, to inspire without becoming idols, and to stay loyal to the heavens that sent them. Even though they felt close to people, they were only loyal to God. Every sunrise reminded them of the promise they made. Every night with stars was a sign that heaven was happy. They lived in two worlds, protecting one and serving the other. For a long time, their mission went off without a hitch. They saw families grow, kids learn to walk, mothers whisper blessings over their newborns, and fathers build shelters to keep them safe. People were young and innocent enough to be shaped into good. The Watchers thought people were good, and that they could learn to be good even when they were weak. They were sometimes allowed to send short, useful messages. When a prophet prayed, one of them might show up as a vision surrounded by light. Their voices brought peace that calmed all fears and made sure that God had not left his creation. They had knowledge that was older than mountains and wisdom that came from the One who made stars out of nothing. They had steady hearts. They always did what they were told. That's how it started, at least. Over time, things changed. The innocence of earth slowly faded away. People learnt how to hurt as well as how to love. Their hands made tools for making things, and then they changed those tools into weapons. Jealousy got in the way of their relationships. Greed affected their decisions. It became easier to be violent. Instead of warm empathy, there was cruel laughter. The Watchers saw. Their peaceful job started to make them sad. It hurts a lot to see someone ruin the things they prayed for. The Watchers' hearts hurt with each new act of injustice. Even though angels weren't supposed to feel that way, they kept watching because heaven told them to. But their hearts were drawn more to the people they had come to love. Some people felt their admiration turn into love. They thought that the flaws in people were beautiful. They started to care too much. They saw women raising kids by themselves, families mourning losses that were too much to bear, and young men trying to stay alive in a world that was getting harder. A mix of kindness and interest. The gap between heaven and earth got smaller in their hearts. Some people wondered why they could see people in pain but not do anything about it. Why do you love someone but can't fully comfort them? One day, a group of Watchers met on a big mountain that touched the sky. They looked down at the world that people were making. It was both beautiful and sad at the same time. Their leader spoke softly and reminded them of what they were supposed to do. Still, some people wondered if the mission still made sense. If they weren't allowed to respond, why did heaven care so much about human souls? Even though there were silent arguments among the Watchers, God still saw some faithful people among humans. Enoch was one of them. It all made sense again when they looked at him. His dedication gave them hope again. He was proof that people weren't lost and that the Creator's plan could still shine through. Like rain on dry ground, Enoch's prayers brought them back to life. Enoch didn't know it, but the Watchers thought highly of him. He didn't know that heavenly eyes were watching him during his nights of deep thought and days of quiet service. Enoch walked while others fell. Enoch got closer to God while others turned away. His existence answered a lot of questions for the Watchers. Maybe heaven was still willing to wait for people if one person could love God so deeply. They got brighter every time they saw him talking to God under the stars. His life was a constant reminder that light could still shine in the dark. But desire is a dangerous thing, even for angels. The more they saw people grow, the more they wanted to be a part of it. The more they cared, the more they wanted to lead, teach, and help instead of just watching. Their love, which was once pure, started to turn into an attachment that went beyond what heaven wanted. Some people started to picture a world where they weren't above people, but next to them. A world where people thanked them directly. A world where their wisdom changed people's lives. A world where they felt wanted, respected, and maybe even worshipped. This changing desire would one day lead them to make decisions that would change the course of history and shake both heaven and earth. For now, though, they were still what they had always been, beautiful guardians made of divine fire, watching the fragile human story unfold and waiting for heaven to show them the next chapter in its eternal plan. The earth kept spinning under the stars as they twinkled in the night sky. People slept outside, not knowing that beings of light were silently guarding them with every breath they took. The watchers stopped feeling like far-off protectors at some point. Their eyes stayed on people for a long time, not out of curiosity but out of desire. Earth, with all its imperfections, began to pull at them like a silent melody. At first, these angels were happy just watching, but now they felt drawn to the people they were supposed to protect. It started with little things. A watcher stopped to listen to a mother sing her child to sleep. The lullaby rose into the night like a weak prayer. Another person watched a man carve wood into shapes that seemed to hold memories and longing in every curve. People felt love, sadness, hope, and fear so strongly that even beings in heaven felt something change inside them. They were made of light, but humans had a different kind of glow. Their feelings were real. Their choices are hard to predict. They messed up, cried, and laughed in ways that made life seem real. The watchers were fascinated by this. The more they watched, the more they wanted to know. Some people would whisper to each other in quiet heavenly voices, what would it be like to live a human moment? To touch the ground with our own hands? To make someone who feels alone feel better? Curiosity, which was once harmless, began to grow into desire. Over the years, the line between heaven and earth seemed to get thinner and thinner. The watchers saw human women whose beauty and spirit made them feel things they had never felt before. These daughters of Adam were brave, caring, fierce in love, and able to handle pain. The world seemed to shine a little brighter when they smiled. A watcher's heart felt like it might break when they cried. The angels had seen beauty in stars before, but this was a different kind of beauty. It wasn't perfect, which made it more real. Their interest turned into a deep desire. They didn't just want to see, they wanted to be a part of it. The stars in the sky seemed too far away. The ground below seemed too inviting. Every heartbeat they saw made them want to accept the invitation. One watcher couldn't hide how much he liked her. His brothers honored him and called him saint. He stood tall, and his presence was calm but strong. People paid attention when he talked. He wore wisdom like a shield and leadership like a crown. But something dangerous was going on inside. He saw a woman gather food for her kids. Even though she had been working long hours, her hands were still gentle. He saw a young man put his life on the line to protect a friend. He saw lovers hold on to each other during storms, promising to stay loyal no matter what. People were weak and imperfect, but their love and bravery made him want something that heaven had never prepared him for. Semiezer got together with other watchers who were also having the same problem. They met in a quiet spot high above the valleys, where the stars shook like silver leaves. The air there was full of tension, as if creation knew a choice was coming. Semiezer spoke softly, but there was a heaviness in his voice that couldn't be ignored. He told them what many of them were already afraid of. Their hearts had changed. They no longer looked at people from a safe distance. They wanted to do more than just watch. They wanted to walk next to the people they looked up to, feel love the way people do, and see life in all its beauty and pain. Some people said they should fight this urge. They had promised to be loyal to heaven. They knew that the limits put on them were not just suggestions, but holy laws. The Creator had given angels and humans different paths to follow. No one could have predicted what would happen if those paths were combined, but just being unsure couldn't stop their desire from growing. Sem looked at each of his brothers and saw the fear and desire in their eyes. A lot of people were scared, not of punishment, but of happiness that was against the rules. They wondered if following the rules was worth a life spent wanting something they could never have. Angels who had always been loyal began to have doubts over time. Azazel spoke with passion, fierce and brave. He said that people needed them more than ever right now. The people were getting deeper and deeper into violence and chaos. What if angels could show them the way with more than just silent hope? What if they could also give them wisdom and knowledge? What if they could save people from destroying themselves? It sounded good. It sounded right. But there was a darker, more personal desire hidden behind those words. Azazel didn't just want to lead. He wanted to make the world the way he wanted it. Some people nodded in agreement. Some people were unsure. But being unsure was already a step away from following orders. They went back to that mountain every night. Plans formed like shadows that got thicker with each talk. They told themselves that their choice might help people and that love couldn't be a sin. But at the core of it, desire had taken the place of purpose. People on the ground had no idea that a holy uprising was happening in the sky. People went about their lives without knowing that angels were watching them and getting hungrier for what they could never have without breaking heaven's trust. When Semiezer made a statement, things changed. His voice shook a little, but not because he was scared. He was determined. He told them that if they chose to go down, they had to do it together. If one person fell, everyone else had to fall too. They would have to deal with whatever happened next together. The watchers looked at each other for a long time without saying anything. Together, they became braver. Temptation no longer felt like weakness. It felt like fate. So they came to an agreement. Under the stars that used to guide their obedience, on the mountain whose top reached the edges of the sky, they would come down to earth as beings who loved, not just watched. Their wings would no longer mean distance, but loyalty. This choice didn't happen all at once. It was years of quiet struggle, and finally, centuries of wanting one, a battle inside them. The line between duty and desire was crossed. Their hearts had chosen the earth over heaven. They looked down at people with excitement, fear, and a hunger that felt like fire hidden behind calm faces. They didn't know that their search for beauty would lead to destruction. They would bring about sadness that the world had never seen before by wanting love. The earth, on the other hand, waited, taking in the calm before a storm that would change history forever. Enoch, who lived a simple life of faith and closeness to God, had no idea that angels were getting ready to step into a story that would soon become part of his own. The sky stayed the same. The stars were still shining, but nothing in heaven or on earth would ever be the same again. There was no thunder or war when the watchers came to earth. It happened quietly, like a secret that the wind carried. They entered the world in forms that looked like people, walking the same ground they had only seen from above. At first, People thought they were strange people with a lot of presence. Their strength seemed otherworldly, their eyes were full of old wisdom, and their voices were calm and full of wonder and respect. At first, it felt like a blessing that they were there. It looked like fields were thriving wherever they went. Kids looked at them with awe. Families welcomed them as honored guests, not knowing that these beings were once meant to stay behind the veil of heaven. The Watchers thought they were doing the right thing. They thought that by being there, they would bring hope and understanding. But when desire, not purpose, drives hope, it can quickly turn into something much more dangerous. The angels slowly started to share bits of their knowledge, secrets that were never meant for people to know. People who had fought for generations to stay alive suddenly found themselves learning things that seemed impossible to them. The Watchers taught them skills that made a big difference in their lives right away. What used to take years of trying and failing was now easy. Azazel was the first person to openly teach things that were not allowed. He taught men how to shape metal with big gestures and a lot of pride. He showed how strong iron really is and how shiny bronze can be. Tools that used to be used for simple tasks were turned into weapons of power. Hammers rang out like new thunder, bouncing off of lands that had never felt iron's edge before. Men felt stronger, more able, and ready to change the world to fit their needs. But power often leads to problems. There used to be peace between villages, but now there are new fights. Jealousy spread like smoke. Who would be in charge of the warriors with the best swords? Who would be in charge of the growing communities? Azazel was proud of what he had started as he watched it all happen. He thought he was making the world a better place, but his teachings caused more trouble than peace. Other Watchers followed paths that were interesting to them in their own way. Some taught how the stars moved in patterns that looked like they were drawn by unseen hands. People learned to look up at the stars and search for their fate among the constellations. What used to be a mystery turned into a system that could be read and understood. The future didn't seem like a quiet mystery anymore. People thought that by watching the stars closely, they could change their fate. One Watcher taught about herbs and roots, showing how nature could heal or hurt people depending on the intention behind the hand that held it. Families who were sick found relief, and they were grateful. But the seeds of darker uses were already planted, waiting for the wrong person to pick them. Lines that used to separate survival from power started to fade. Women learned how to use paints and powders to change their looks in ways that the Watchers found beautiful. Beauty used to be a natural reflection of the soul, but now it can be made and changed. Mirrors that used to show the truth now fed vanity. People who haven't learnt how to handle knowledge can feel overwhelmed when they get it too quickly. The Watchers walked among people like teachers, but they felt a deep personal longing in their hearts. Every stolen moment of love took them further away from the purpose they used to serve. They became friends with families, laughed together at meals, and felt safe and warm when they were close to other people. Love stories grew in the dark, passionate and addictive. The kids who came from these marriages were different from all the others. More powerful, taller, and hungry for power. Their voices were loud like storms, and their footsteps shook the ground. These giants, who had powers beyond what anyone could imagine, became restless. People were both amazed and scared by the stories of their great deeds that spread far and wide as the giants grew up. So did people's desire for more knowledge, power, and control. People started to want what they should have been afraid of. They eagerly practiced what they had learnt, not knowing how much it would cost them to learn each new skill. But not all hearts were happy with this sudden change. Some older people were worried that people had grown too quickly and missed out on the wisdom that time should have given them. They saw their kids become arrogant and their leaders become greedy. The Watchers had promised to help, but that help had turned into temptation, which had turned into corruption. As Enoch walked among his people, he felt his heart grow heavy as he saw the change. Villages that used to get along now fought over land. People fought over pride instead of staying alive. Chants of war and celebration of violence took the place of songs that used to praise the Creator. The world was changing like the earth under a wave that was getting bigger. At first it was slow, but once it started, it couldn't be stopped. Because of Enoch's quiet faith, he saw things that others missed. Not everything the Watchers taught was bad by itself. The desire for greatness and glory turned these gifts into burdens. People weren't ready for such deep knowledge without help that was based on respect and humility. And the Watchers, who were blinded by their own wants, stopped asking heaven for permission. They acted like their choices would never affect anyone else. What they didn't understand was that everything they did had an effect on everything else. The earth changed, but heaven did not sleep. The silence above did not mean approval. It was quiet before justice came. When Enoch went for long walks through the quiet fields, he often looked up at the sky. He felt that the space between heaven and earth had gotten darker, not smaller. To him, the stars looked different, like their light was flickering with sadness. He prayed for understanding, knowing deep down that something huge was coming that would change everything. The Watchers kept giving out information that was sweet at first, but turned sour over time. They thought they were heroes who were bringing knowledge. People thought they couldn't be stopped anymore. They were both wrong in ways they couldn't see yet. People who were not afraid but excited had been given the secrets of heaven. A door had been opened that could never be completely closed again. And soon everyone on earth would have to deal with the problems that come from getting too much information too quickly and carelessly. Enoch took deep breaths every night before bed. Knowing that the world was getting heavier, he knew that peace was fading, and that a thirst that no amount of knowledge, skill, or blade could ever satisfy was taking its place. The skies stayed calm. The earth was quiet and uneasy. A story about love and teaching was already starting to turn into something much scarier. They looked like echoes of chaos, coming from a world that had lost its innocence. The kids of the Watchers and mortal women were unlike anything else in the world. They were the result of a connection that should never have happened. Height that can't be imagined, strength that can't be explained, and hunger that can't be satisfied. From the first time they walked, people looked up to them with fear. The Nephilim were their name. It was never natural for them to be born. They didn't belong on earth or in heaven. They were in between what should have been and what should never have been. A normal child's cry was soft, but these kids' cries were loud and angry. The ground shook in villages. The air shook. People whispered stories that the ground itself was afraid of their steps. What started as an interest between gods and people quickly turned into a nightmare. The Watchers wanted to help people by giving them knowledge, but their children ended up causing destruction. But at first, there was awe. People thought these giants were amazing. How could they not? Think about how cool it would be to see someone who could lift boulders like pebbles and run faster than the wind. There must have been a time when people admired the Nephilim's beauty as well as their power. This is because they had a strange kind of glow that came from their heavenly blood. They looked like champions made to win, But when there are no limits to frame beauty, it turns into terror. The Nephilim quickly learned that nothing could stop them. They found out that they were stronger than all the other creatures around them, and hungrier than all the animals that lived on Earth. Their hunger became wild. What started as a search for food turned into taking anything they wanted, even lives, land, and power. Some stories say they ate livestock until there weren't many left. Then they started eating the people who had once looked up to them. When they passed through, towns that had once cheered them fell silent. Mothers held their kids close. Instead of facing the impossible, men hid their weapons. Their presence changed the world's harmony. People ripped apart forests for fun. Their fights changed the course of rivers. Their shouts echoed through the mountains like thunder that never stopped. The giants walked around and knocked down the small, weak structures of people. They had a little bit of angelic brilliance, but none of heaven's discipline or divine compassion. The Watchers, who were blinded by love and pride, didn't think about how children become like the world they live in. These kids were made by chaos. Still, some people may have tried to raise them with love in the early years. Some mothers must have held these huge kids and prayed that love would help them control their strength. Some fathers may have been amazed and proud as their sons and daughters did things that were worthy of myth. But as they got bigger, so did the fear. What happens when a kid who can't be controlled starts to think that the world is there just for them? They did not learn to be humble. They learned how to be in charge. The earth wasn't their home. It was their playground at first, but then it became their prison. People were already having a hard time with corruption and violence back then, before the Great Flood. Now they were up against forces they couldn't get away from. One giant could lead hundreds, and their presence created a culture that valued strength above all else. Their shadows made kingdoms rise. Leaders turned into tyrants because of them, or the Nephilim took power themselves. Before, people fought with each other. Now they fight with monsters. There was a lot of bloodshed. The cries of the weak got louder. The land felt tired and wanted to be free. If history could have been written back then, it would show how a world built for balance is now ruled by imbalance. Darkness crept into the hearts of both men and giants. People told stories around fires at night, hoping that the Nephilim would never hear them breathe. Children were told not to go too far away because the giants. Anger was always there and could happen at any time. There is never just one moment that destroys a world. It's a lot of small cracks that slowly spread until the structure that holds everything together finally breaks. The Nephilim were the cracks that became flesh. The size of the broken choices that made them was reflected in their size. They were a living reminder that crossing a queue once with excitement can have effects that last for generations. People who used to protect humanity now watched their kids tear it apart. Some people say that even the Watchers were afraid of what their kids were becoming. Think about how terrible it would be to see your own children become symbols of destruction. They were torn between their love for their children and the fear of what they had done. They couldn't take back what they had done. They couldn't stop what was now changing the earth. Their hearts must have felt like they were carrying guilt like a storm cloud that never went away. That's what happens when you make a mistake because you want to, instead of because you know better at the same time. People were crying out for help. They prayed for help getting away from a fate they couldn't fight on their own. Every day, the sun rose, and there was doubt about whether they would live. Every night tried to take away their hope. But even in that time of violence, there was still a whisper of faith. People remembered that the world didn't come from giants or watchers. It came from a creator who was still watching, listening, and judging what had happened to his plan. Some stories say that the earth itself told on them for their sins. The ground that soaked up the blood, the sky that echoed with cries of pain, and the water that saw cruelty all said that enough was enough. The Nephilim had become such a loud symbol of rebellion that the heavens couldn't ignore it anymore. They were too tall, and their shadows blocked out the light that was meant for all living things. No one could have guessed what would happen next. A world that seemed to be ruled by beings that couldn't be stopped was heading towards a fate that even giants couldn't escape. The violence was getting so bad that the Creator would step in and clean everything up, even those who thought they could never be beaten. A judgment that would change history was quietly being prepared on the stage, even though no one knew what kind of change was coming. The first signs of it were already starting to show, and in that world of chaos, a man named Enoch walked with faith that would not bend and a heartbeat of hope that would not go away. He was getting ready for revelations that would speak for every scared soul. They could feel the shadows long before it got dark. People's hearts had changed in some way. Being kind used to come easily, but now it felt like a chore. Trust was a very rare thing. Everyone had a shield of suspicion because they had learned that betrayal was always close by. It wasn't just the giants that scared people. People started to lose what made them human. Violence became normal. Being selfish became normal. Instead of being seen as people who needed help, the weak were seen as obstacles. A world made for peace was falling apart, piece by piece. Mothers tried to keep their kids safe, but even love seemed weak. Families had a hard time making it through another day. You could hear fights echoing through small towns, and anger rose faster than understanding. The Nephilim were like living disasters, but what scared me even more was what regular people were doing. Hearts that used to be kind started to use cruelty as a weapon. The world becomes strange when kindness is hard to find. People saw each other not as neighbors, but as rivals. Every face reminded me that danger was always close by. There must have been older people who remembered better times, when the wind carried laughter and the stars looked calm instead of scary. They probably wondered how everything had gone wrong so quickly. The stories they used to tell kids about hope and coming together now seemed like stories from a different world. Fear changed every story. The giants' huge shadows covered fields and villages. But the darkest shadows were those that fell inside men's hearts. People didn't follow God's laws. People made fun of wisdom. The Watcher's forbidden knowledge took the place of the Creator's teachings, and the results were terrible. People started to rely on things they shouldn't have known. Some people now found comfort in magic. Weapons got sharper because people learnt how to kill more effectively. Tools of destruction were being made out of the beauty of creation. Without guidance, knowledge can be harmful. People drank a lot, not knowing that their souls were slowly drowning. Heaven watched, not out of anger at first, but out of sadness. The Creator, who had once walked happily with his creation, now saw hearts that were hard as stone. Think about a parent watching their kids break everything they give them. The pain would be too much to bear. People often forget about that sadness when they tell stories about judgment. It wasn't anger that came first. It was a broken heart. There was no thunder in the sky, only sadness. The Watchers could even feel the weight of what they had created. They wanted to be with someone. They wanted to share the light they used to carry with pride. Instead, they had started destruction. They now saw people holding on to lies, letting their desires take over, and losing control of everything holy inside them. The light of humanity that used to shine brightly was now hidden under layers of corruption. There was no law strong enough to stop desire when it was mixed with heavenly rebellion. For a lot of people, violence was fun. People came to see the Nephilim fight and cheered as if death was something to be happy about. Some people thought that joining forces with the giants would keep them safe. Others fought back out of desperation and paid the price. There was a constant fight between cities and villages. No one knew when a huge, angry, and bored person might destroy everything in their way just to satisfy a dark curiosity. A lot of people prayed. They cried out for help in their hearts, and their whispers rose like smoke into the sky. They were afraid that maybe no one up there was listening anymore. But heaven heard every cry. The Creator heard every shaky breath. The world wasn't left behind. It was breaking, which was the sad part. The ground, which they knew and trusted, now felt strange under their feet. There was no warning before the storms came. The seasons felt like they were changing all the time. Nature showed the difference between what people were meant to be and what they had become. The kids stared at the giants with wide eyes, not understanding why these huge people were so angry or why they didn't care about the lives they were destroying. In a world full of corruption, childhood innocence was often the first thing to go. Fear was a lesson learnt too soon. Joy was a memory that adults didn't have time to pass on. The future has already begun to fall apart when fear raises a child. There were still those who tried to keep doing good. They gave each other what little they had. They helped the sad people feel better. They started small fires of hope that the darkness couldn't put out completely. They told each other that the Creator was still with them. No one knew how important these small acts were. They were rebellions of love against a world that taught hate. Hope is a strong feeling, but it can get quieter when there is a lot of noise around it. The noise of chaos was too much to bear. Heavenly sorrow turned into a divine decision. Sometimes the first step to healing is cleaning up when everything that was holy becomes dirty. The Creator, out of love, saw that if things kept going this way, people would completely destroy themselves. Love needed help. Judgment was never meant to be punishment for no reason. It was the right thing for God to do, since He wouldn't give up on the world He made with care. The earth felt the tension rising, like a storm getting ready to break open the sky. Rivers were full of secrets that no one knew. Winds carried warnings that only the wise could hear. Animals sensed danger and started to move in strange ways, looking for safety they no longer trusted to find. It felt like everything was waiting for something that no one could name. People tried to keep busy and act like everything was normal, but they were always worried. A lot of people hid their fear behind anger. Others gave up hope and gave up what was left of their goodness. Some leaders told people to be loyal to the giants, thinking that power could save them. They didn't get that no amount of strength can protect them from judgment that comes from beyond the stars. Enoch walked through this world quietly, seeing the pain and feeling the sadness that heaven felt. He felt bad for everyone, even those who had lost their way completely. He knew that darkness didn't just show up. It gets bigger when light isn't protected. He saw how heavy sin was and how beautiful it was that people were still trying to be kind. His connection to God gave him a deeper understanding than most people. He knew that corruption was getting so bad that something big and scary would happen soon. It was as if the world was tired and let out a sigh. People's hearts raced as they felt something big coming. But even with all that fear, one truth stayed alive. The Creator had not yet said what He wanted to say. Judgment was coming, but mercy was still a part of it. The darkness was real, but it never has the last word when the author of light is watching. Everything was getting ready for a moment that would change history for good. Enoch knew it before he understood it. It was as if every sound had been wrapped in silence and the world around him had stopped. In that moment, the constant fear that hung over people didn't bother him. He had been walking with God for a long time, and when he talked to him, he didn't use memorized prayers. Instead, he kept his heart open. Even though people around him were losing faith, he still believed that the Creator had not left anyone behind. Even when the shadows seemed to go on forever, his quiet faith was like a light that never went out. There must have been days when he wondered why he was the one who had to see so much sadness. He cared about his family. He really cared about the people around him. It must have hurt his heart to see them fight fear, corruption, and violence every day. He still prayed. He told other people that hope was real. He talked softly about the one who made the stars. A few people listened. A lot of people laughed. But Enoch never gave up. He had so much faith that he could never give up. As the sun set one night, something amazing started to happen. The air around him felt strange, like it was alive in a way that no breeze had ever acted. It brought warmth instead of cold and comfort instead of fear. A soft light appeared near him. It wasn't blinding, but it was calming, like moonlight coming to life. He looked up and felt a calm certainty in his chest instead of fear. The call from heaven. Think about how he felt at that moment. A man who loved the ground he walked on was suddenly asked to leave it. A dad who cares about his kids. A friend thought about the few people who still believed. There must have been a mix of awe and desire. He might have cried, not because he was afraid of leaving, but because he wanted the world to know how he felt. Peace so deep that it made all worries go away. Love that wrapped around him like a cloak. He walked more slowly. His breathing got softer. He knew he wasn't just dreaming. A presence surrounded him that was gentle but strong, unlike anything any living person had ever felt. The Watchers used to shine like this, but now their hearts were broken. This light didn't show any signs of rebellion. It only had purity. The Creator was close. The ground below him didn't move. Nature did not make a loud noise. The moment didn't need violence to be strong. It was holy because it was so quiet. Enoch could feel his body getting lighter. The ground that had always held his feet was no longer there. The sky seemed to have a stronger pull than gravity. He raised his head, and the stars that had seemed so far away now seemed to be getting closer. People who might have seen it would never forget it. A man who looked like everyone else was stepping into something amazing. They could see heaven opening right in front of them. It wasn't a storm or a disaster. It was a present. The Creator was happy to see his friend again, even if it was just for a little while. Enoch must have thought about what was waiting for him beyond the clouds. He had always lived in a world full of struggle and survival, but now he was going to a place that had never been corrupted. A place where every breath was full of life instead of fear. He felt his heart swell with awe. Each beat felt lighter, like a rhythm that echoed peace. He saw things that no one could have imagined as he went up. Light turned into paths, and angels moved like fire. He had never seen such peace on people's faces on earth. Their eyes were clear, no question. Don't be afraid. Only certainty comes from being close to the Creator. They didn't see him as a stranger. They saw him as someone they had watched for generations. His spirit knew this place. even though his human mind could barely understand it. In a way, this was home that Earth could never be. He felt that everything here had to do with love. The colors were deeper. The air felt alive. Every sound had a meaning. There was nothing empty. There was nothing wrong. The universe felt whole. The angels led him on until the light was so pure that it seemed to be the source of all good things. He learnt more as he got closer to it. People often feel alone, especially when things are hard, but he learnt that every tear is seen. God hears all prayers, even the ones that are too quiet to say. Heaven had never turned away. People just walked away. Enoch didn't say anything, but everything inside him said thank you. His time on earth had been hard, but he always believed that God was with him. Trust had now brought him to glory. There was no need to explain. He already knew why he was here. God wanted someone who could see the truth of heaven and give hope back to those who were losing it. He was shown things that were too big to be put into words. He saw the plans for both judgment and restoration. That's right. He could see how sad God was about what people were becoming. It was a sadness that felt heavier than the ocean. But under that sadness was love, which was stronger than anything darkness could ever make. God wasn't giving up on the world. He was getting ready to save it. Heaven's time didn't move like time on earth. It moved in a different way, like a river that knew where to go in all directions at once. Enoch realized how heavy the burden had been for him as a good man in a bad time. That weight fell off here. He was in front of the one who knew everything about him. All doubts went away. Every cut healed at some point. He must have realized he would come back. A part of him might have wished to stay forever, but his purpose had only just begun. God chose him not just to see glory, but also to speak for him, to give a warning, to show the way, to make things better, to remind people that heaven was not far away. It was reaching out. Enoch knew that the world would be even darker when he got back. Shadows seemed thicker after someone has seen pure light. But that didn't stop him. It made him more determined. He would be a voice telling people that goodness was still alive if their hearts were failing. He would walk among them with eyes that had seen forever. He would tell them that judgment was coming, but that they could still be saved. He kept the peace of heaven with him as he slowly fell back to earth. He didn't feel alone when the ground pressed down on his feet again. The silence of heaven echoed in his heart and pushed him on. He had a secret that he wasn't supposed to keep. He had been in front of God. He had been given a warm welcome into the highest place. He had seen love that never broke. People who saw him later might not have known what had changed about him. They might have only seen that his voice sounded calmer, or that his eyes looked clearer. They couldn't see the bright truth inside him, but they could feel it. His presence gave me comfort. His words had weight that came from peace, not power. Enoch walked among people again, knowing that every step was part of a bigger plan. He knew that even though the darkness was spreading, help was on the way. His first rise had brought something to life in him that would never die. Even though he was still alive on earth, a part of him now belonged to heaven. Enoch never forgot how it felt to rise towards that shining world. Even after coming back to earth, pieces of those visions stayed with him. They would come to him while he was resting. Other times when he was praying, they looked like soft whispers of light that brought back memories of where he had been. He knew he had seen a part of creation that most people could only dream of. The first heavens were like a huge canvas over the world, and they were more alive than anything below. There was something there. It had a lot of meaning. the sky looked simple from the ground. During the day, it's blue, and at night, it's dark and full of stars. It changed with the weather and the seasons, but most people didn't think about how deep it was. They thought of it as just a roof over their heads. Enoch now knew it was more like a curtain. A kingdom was watching and waiting behind it. Every cloud moved with a quiet purpose. Every ray of light had a reason. There was never anything careless above. Enoch could see what he had walked through when he closed his eyes. The air itself glowed softly, not like sunlight that makes you squint, but like a peaceful light that calmed the mind. There were colors that didn't have names on earth. They moved instead of staying still, as if each shade had its own spirit. It was like seeing beauty learn how to walk. He saw beings of light moving through that heavenly space. There were differences between angels. Some looked like fire that could think. Some shone like polished gems that showed the world. Their wings didn't always look like wings. Sometimes they looked like patterns of energy that were wide and fluid and went farther than anyone could imagine. When they moved, they left behind soft trails that looked like echoes that shimmered for a second before fading into the sky. In that world, distance didn't work the same way it does on Earth. One step could take someone across the horizon. Because they weren't afraid of running out of time, travelers didn't hurry. Movement felt like a song, slow and with a purpose. Enoch remembered being with one of them, but walk might not be the right word. They floated as if the sky was holding them up. Under the paths of angels were tapestries of stars that were perfectly arranged. They were more than just balls of fire, like signs that the Creator put there to remind heaven and earth of their connection. They were markers. Enoch understood what they meant, even though he couldn't fully explain it. It seemed like they were speaking a silent language that spoke the truth without sound. Every twinkle had a story to tell. Every constellation held promise. He saw rivers of light that sparkled. They twisted and turned gracefully through the space, like streams that didn't need banks or soil. These rivers were clear and endless, just like God's heart. It was like looking into the beginning of life when I looked at them. They told stories, maybe of making things, perhaps of love, maybe of destinies that aren't yet clear. People who studied those rivers would forget their fear right away. The first heavens also had gardens that went on and on. The trees were tall, and their leaves shone like silver in the morning sun. The branches of the trees hummed softly with life, making music that eased every burden. The flowers opened up like little lanterns, with each petal glowing softly. The smell of them made me feel at ease. Breathing there healed the soul. Nothing died. Nothing went bad. It looked like every plant was celebrating the one who made them. Enoch saw gates made of light that formed patterns in the middle of that beauty. They weren't locked or sealed with force, but they were very important. He thought they were doors that led to higher places where only people who were invited could go. The Watchers used to be able to move freely past them, but the memory of their rebellion hung over those gates like a silent warning. Light could say yes or no. This world was peaceful, but it wasn't chaotic. Enoch also saw shapes in the sky that looked like eyes. They weren't scary. They gave off a sense of warmth and understanding. He knew they could see everything that was going on Earth. They didn't miss any cruelty. No kind act went unnoticed. The world might have thought it was alone, lost in chaos, but heaven was always watching and crying for every lost path. The pillars of that world caught his eye the most. They looked like glowing towers that came out of nowhere and held the sky in place. Enoch didn't know what they were made of. Maybe light gave structure. Maybe the truth took shape. They were so tall that even the angels looked up to them in respect. These pillars were a reminder that the Creator's strength held everything up. The universe wasn't weak. Love held it tightly. Enoch remembered hearing music that seemed too full to be described in words. They didn't play it on instruments. It came from the very fabric of heaven. The harmonies fit together perfectly, like a living symphony. Every note felt like a hand lifting hearts up. It changed a person from the inside out. Fear wounds healed. The weight of sadness went away. Even memories of pain stopped hurting. The music here was healing, always there, and pure. There were soft clouds that floated by at times, but they weren't the dead shapes from below. These ones glowed like pearls and pulsed softly, like they were breathing. They might have been able to bring happiness or peace. It felt like laughter was building up inside my soul when they got closer. Enoch wanted people to be able to feel that gift. Maybe then hate would lose its power and peace would no longer seem impossible to reach. The first heavens were a doorway, a reminder of what creation was always meant to be. Enoch saw that the Creator had made everything beautiful, even the skies above the sinful earth, which could give hope. It made him think that things could be fixed. Darkness might grow, but light grew stronger above it, waiting for the right time to come down. Being there changed how he saw everything. He realized how small human cruelty was compared to how big mercy is. The angels around him knew that people were sad on earth, but their eyes were always full of hope. They worked hard, knowing that love would win in the end. Enoch knew why he had been sent to this world. It wasn't a reward for being good. It was a job. He was shown the heavens so that he could talk about them when he got back. People needed to know that life didn't end when things got hard. They needed to know that there was a kingdom beyond the pain and corruption that was full of love and glory. A world that wanted them to come back. Those memories of the trip wrapped around his heart like a warm blanket. He didn't feel like the sky had left him when his feet touched the ground again. The skies stayed close. Every night, when he looked up, the stars seemed to tell him things he already knew. He thought of what would happen to everyone who stayed faithful. When he saw their soft glow, Enoch held on to those visions with a steady heart. He remembered the peace above, even when the world was full of violence. That memory gave him strength. He knew he would go back to heaven one day, not for a short time, but to stay there. He walked quietly among his people until then, with the sky in his eyes. At some point during the climb, everything that is familiar disappears. The air feels alive, with a soft pulse that feels like a heartbeat pushing Enoch through the last layers of the heavens. Light doesn't shine from far away anymore. Light is all around, breathing and listening. It doesn't feel like light. It feels more like a presence that welcomes him. The path under his feet glows without a solid shape, and the sky above him is no longer sky, but a ribbon of light that goes up. Even sound is different here. It's softer but stronger, like every quiet whisper is true. Enoch's heart shakes with awe, but not because he is afraid. It comes from the fact that he knows he's going into a place that few people have ever thought about, let alone seen. His human senses have a hard time taking in what he sees. Light on top of light. Colors that don't have names. A purity so perfect that there have never been any shadows here. He stops for a moment and feels the quiet hum of eternity against his skin, pulling him toward a place he can't even imagine. There is something up high that shines brighter than anything he has seen on this trip, even though he can't really tell how far away it is. Not a flame and not a star. It is such a full source that every other glow seems to come from it. The angels who are with him bow their heads without thinking about it, and their wings fold inward as if they can barely stand to be near him. They don't talk as much now, and every move they make is full of respect. Enoch knows that they are getting closer to the center of all reality, the heart from which creation has flowed like a river since the beginning. As he goes on, the air gets more holy. It feels like walking into a prayer that was said before language existed. Millions of tiny sparks float up into the air, like fireflies dreaming in slow motion. Each one has a purpose. They show us pictures of worlds being made, galaxies swirling into place, and every star singing a note that fits perfectly into the universe. Here, time seems clear, like a piece of clear crystal. A soft breath brings together the past, present, and future. Then he sees something amazing. There is sound, but it's not a group of people singing. It is one thing that vibrates through everything. A warmth that goes deeper than skin. A voice that doesn't break the silence. This is the world where glory isn't seen. It is felt in every part of the soul. The angels guide Enoch to a huge area that is unlike anything on earth. The floor below them turns into a sea of polished crystal that goes on forever in all directions. It looks like frozen starlight, but it moves with a soft ripple, like water that remembers how to shine. With each step, soft waves of love from the one who rules over all come out. In the middle of this huge space is a throne. There are arcs of fire all around it that are blinding but also strangely soft, touching everything nearby instead of burning it. The flames seem to be smart because they move in ways that remind me of thoughts and songs. Enoch knows they are alive, embodiments of holiness, and protectors of a presence so holy that no imagination can reach its height. Even the strongest angels come with slow, respectful steps and wings down in humility. Above the throne, lightning dances in silence. Its light is sharper than diamonds, but smooth like water. It flashes with colors that are impossible for people to see, moving through shades that would blind them. Every bolt seems to hold knowledge, as if it were a message from the heart of time. There is no flashing light. It breathes. Enoch only comes closer when you call him. A warm, soft breeze blows around him, pushing him forward. It feels like a hand, but it's all comfort. At first, he doesn't look up. He just stares at the golden floor that is glowing below him. The weight of glory rests lightly on his shoulders, not crushing them or pushing him away. It's an invitation, a love so strong that it can't hide from someone who has been welcomed into its presence. Then, Enoch slowly looks up. He sees the throne not just with his eyes, but with his whole body. Every inch of this realm is full of majesty. From the one who sits on the throne, streams of light pour out, lighting up endless distances. Angels of unimaginable size and beauty stand in a circle around the throne, singing a song with no words. Their music makes things happen, making stars twinkle and galaxies spin in perfect harmony. Their wings are like living clouds, and they reach horizons that can't be measured. Enoch can only describe the presence of the one on the throne later as the brilliance of love itself. A love that makes things, a love that lasts, a love that is too strong to see all at once. Enoch thinks that everything in his life has led up to this point. Now, every breath, every dream, and every question that hasn't been answered makes perfect sense. He is filled with awe and nothing else matters. The air is full of holiness. Light flows out from the throne in streams, showing everything in the world what to do. Enoch sees patterns in creation, with every detail made on purpose. He sees prayers coming up from earth and moving through unseen paths to this very center of the universe. The one who never sleeps hears even the smallest whisper from a lonely heart. Enoch is most moved by how gentle it is. Compassion holds power so great that it could change galaxies in the blink of an eye. This throne does not rule by making people afraid. It rules with love that knows no bounds, love that makes stars just to make the night beautiful for those who might look up and wonder. The angels closest to the throne look like living jewels. Some look like people with more than one wing and a face that shines. Some look like storms of light that swirl around, too beautiful to put into words. They look at Enoch with kindness in their eyes. It seems like they know everything about his life, including all the problems he's had and all the fears he's kept to himself. There is no judgment here, just truth wrapped in love. He feels a wave of understanding wash over him. He knows that this throne is above all light, not just because it is bright, but also because this is where light comes from. This endless source is where every sunrise, every torch in the night, and every spark of hope in a trembling soul comes from. There is no light that can shine without the blessing that comes from here. Enoch's knees feel weak under him. He doesn't fall apart from fear. He kneels down because his heart can't hold the wonder that is inside it anymore. A tear falls from his face and onto the floor, which is glowing. As soon as it hits the light, it sparkles like a diamond and becomes part of the beauty around him. This place doesn't need words. The silence says everything. A soft mantle of holiness rests on him. A warmth that feels like coming home to a place he never knew he belonged to. The throne above all light welcomes him, not as a stranger or a mortal unworthy, but as a beloved witness to the very heart of creation. Enoch stays on his knees for a long time, unable to look away from the light coming from the one on the throne. There is noise around him, even though it is quiet. It is full, like a deep ocean that holds all the mysteries of life below its calm surface. He feels that something is about to happen, not just for him, but for everything that exists. He feels a pull, a soft call from somewhere he can't see, and his breath slows down as if destiny itself is coming to greet him. From the light near the throne, shapes start to appear. At first, they look like lines of light that swirl in beautiful arcs. Then, they become shapes that look old but haven't changed over time. These creatures are holding scrolls, tablets, and books that glow softly, as if they were lit from within by starlight. Enoch remembers them from whispers that angels gave him earlier in his journey. They are the ones who keep the holy writings safe. They are in charge of protecting the most important records of heaven, which tell not only what has happened, but also what will happen. There is a change in energy in the air. The throne room still feels holy, but now there is something else on top of the awe. Anticipation, the kind that makes the heart stop for fear it might interrupt something too important to disturb. One of the keepers steps forward. He is very tall and has wings that stretch farther than Enoch can see. It has a face that shines like polished bronze, but its eyes show kindness. It has a book in its hands that is different from the others. This one is huge, and its cover is a deep blue and white mix, like night and day forever tied together. Enoch feels a heavy weight on his spirit, even though nothing physical touches him. This book is not like others. This is the record of the decision. He knows that this is the time when fate is not just seen. It is said the keeper puts the huge book on a stand of living light that comes up from the crystal floor. The whole realm reacts when the book settles into place. The sea of glass with stars in it pulses once. The arcs of fire around the throne are flickering. Even the air in heaven seems to get thicker. What Enoch sees is not just history that has been written down. It is the plan for justice that is built into everything. The cover slowly opens, but no one pushes it. The pages start to turn on their own, and each turn makes a soft sound that Enoch can't quite describe. A mix of memory and wind. He knows that every page has a lot of names, actions, decisions, secrets, and hopes. This list includes every living person, past and present, with no one left out. An angel bows down and speaks in a voice that sounds like calm thunder, rolling through time. It tells Enoch that this is the book of judgment, which is the proof that all people exist. This book contains the thoughts of hearts and the paths that souls can take to either darkness or eternal light. There is nothing false in the book. There is nothing unfair in the book. It is the truth written down with no shadows. Enoch's heart shakes with a strange mix of need and humility. He wonders how many people live their lives without knowing that every heartbeat leaves a mark, that every choice, no matter how small or hidden, has an effect in a place like this. He knows that the book is not a record of punishment. It is a record of what really happened. The choices we make shape our lives and write our own lines and pages. The keeper motions for Enoch to come closer, and even though he feels like he can't move, he gets up and walks forward. The book gets clearer with every step. He sees symbols glowing like stars that change shape, and paragraphs that look like vines that are alive and growing. Some parts are very bright and beautiful. Others are dim and flicker, as if they are sad or have been betrayed. Enoch knows that nothing in life is a waste. Heaven tells a story about each person that includes every joy, every failure, every act of kindness, and every moment of cruelty. This time, a single page turns more slowly and stays open. Enoch sees a name he doesn't know and a life he hasn't heard of before. Still, he feels sorry for the stranger, as if they were right next to him. Soft, glowing pictures of that person's days appear above the page. A childhood filled with both laughter and trouble. Decisions made out of fear and decisions made out of love. Mistakes that were hard to bear. Victories that made other people feel better. Enoch sees how each action shapes his fate. None of it went away. None of it was ignored. The keeper's voice comes back. This time directed at Enoch. It tells him that people have always been writing their own future. Heaven will not take away free will. Judgment is not something that will happen at the end. People write the last part of a story themselves. The heart chose light if the story ends in light. It ends in darkness because the heart learned to love the dark. Enoch's mind is flooded with a sense of duty. He doesn't see doom. He sees a lot of hope. The book shows that every person is important. Even the smallest prayer said in the dark is written down for all time. Every good deed you do becomes a star in this record. Every honest moment of repentance makes a page that is fading brighter. The pages turn once more. Enoch can now see things that will happen. Cities that grow. Countries that fall apart. Times of great peace and terrible war. The choices of many people shaped the lives of whole generations. He starts to cry as he realizes how weak and valuable people really are. There are so many ways to go. There are so many effects. There is so much room for beauty or destruction. Then something happens that isn't expected. One page turns into one that shines brighter than the others. A page that isn't done yet. Enoch feels like he is somehow there. Not only what he did, but also why he was brought here. The keeper gently tells him that he has been chosen to see, warn, and tell others what he has seen. He is not supposed to judge. His job is to remind people that the story is still going on until the last breath. Fate is not set in stone. Enoch feels the throne room move again, as if the very fabric of heaven is getting closer. The book of judgment is open, and it shines with truth that can change the hearts of anyone who is willing to listen. He now knows why he was taken through the heavens and shown such beauty. People needed a voice, someone who could show the truth of what is beyond what we can see on earth. He stands quietly, letting the weight of this calling settle in. The book ends softly, not with a harsh ending, but with a promise that there is still time for souls to choose their light. The keeper steps back, and the wings open up in a flash of colors that never end. The light on the throne gets softer, just enough for Enoch to breathe again. There is such a thing as judgment, but grace is too. Heaven watches over every soul's fate, which is written in silence and waits for hearts to choose the story they want. Eternity to tell. Enoch still remembers the hall of the throne, and he is gently led away from that bright light. He is full of love, but new whispers are coming around him. They rise like a cold wind through empty rooms, bringing with them a desire that seems to have been there for centuries. He feels like he's going down a little bit in the heavenly realms, not toward darkness, but toward a place where sorrow has been kept. A place for beings who used to be great, but are now afraid of what will happen next. He sees gates made of something like frozen lightning up ahead. They are bright but sad. The air gets heavy with grief as they open, and even the stars seem to dim. Enoch's chest feels tight. He shouldn't be here, but he is, because someone here needs a voice to hear them. Tall shapes come out of the dark. Their bodies still show signs of brilliance, with wings folded in shame and faces that were once bright now marked by sadness. These are the people who watch, once protectors of creation, once teachers of heavenly wisdom. Now they are stuck in a fate they made but never really thought would happen. They look at Enoch not with anger but with desperation, as if he is their last weak link to mercy. The air is full of the tension of many regrets. These watchers look at him with a mix of awe and pleading, but they can't get too close. They know who he is. They have heard whispers going through the spiritual world. The man who is with God, the man who rises without dying, the man who has seen the throne. One of them steps up. Without being told, Enoch knows this is a leader. His presence is strong, but he is sad. His wings are bigger, darker, and still have gold edges. A storm is in his eyes. This is Semiezer, who used to be an angel prince. He tries to talk, but his voice breaks before he can say anything. Instead, he kneels, his wings shaking as if they are carrying the weight of mountains. The silence between them hurts more than any accusation. Finally, he lets out a shaky whisper. His voice sounds like thunder that has been muffled by tears. He admits that he and his brothers did not come down to destroy. They were drawn to each other by love, curiosity, and admiration for the beauty that God put into people. He says that their intentions were not bad. They wanted to share what they knew, help others, and make them feel better. But desire turned into disobedience. The interest that started as admiration ended up ruining the people they wanted to help. He admits what they didn't see. They were told to only watch and protect. They told themselves they could make a different choice without any problems. They thought they were tough enough to deal with feelings that had never touched angelic hearts before, like longing, love, and attachment. They forgot that having power without following orders leads to disaster. Semieza's voice gets deeper as he talks about how sad he is for the kids they had, the big people. People who were born from a forbidden union, once a wonder, now a terror that destroyed the innocence of the world. Their screams still ring out across the land. The watchers feel every scream and every wound their children cause. They already have punishment inside them. Another person moves, stepping forward with fists clenched and eyes wide open that burn with a different kind of pain. This one wears anger like a crown. The shadows seem to know his name well and cling to him. Azazel. His voice is sharp, like metal hitting stone. He doesn't admit anything easily. He talks about freedom, of how rules made brilliance feel like it was stuck in chains, of how people deserved to know things, even dangerous things. He says that you can't give guidance without understanding. People who could use that power shouldn't be kept from it. But even he can't hide the pain in his eyes. He can't choose between pride and regret, so he can't breathe. Enoch knows that each watcher has their own problems. Some people shake with guilt and wish they could go back in time. Some people are confused and angry because they don't understand how love led to their downfall. Some people hold on to their beliefs that they were right. Even when fear makes their voices shake, they see Enoch and a spark of hope appears in them. Hope that heaven hasn't closed all the doors. Hope that the one who made them still knows who they were. At first, they don't say what they want. Then, quietly, one whisper turns into words. Talk for us. A watcher behind the others gives it to you. There are shining trails on his face where tears from the sky fall. He begs Enoch to pray to heaven and ask the Most High if it is possible to be forgiven. If their story has to end in eternal exile, whether their hearts, which were broken but still beating with love for their Creator, could be healed. Enoch hears. He doesn't hurry. He knows that this is not a place to judge. He can see how much they are hurting, the pain of being apart from the one they love. The pain of knowing they were wrong will last for generations. These beings who used to only know light are now afraid of what they did. Semieza raises his head, his voice shaking with fear and respect. He says they sinned even though they knew what they were doing was wrong. He does not make the rebellion right. He only hopes that God will see their change of heart as more than too little, too late. Enoch's heart hurts. He can tell how deeply they are hurting emotionally. Not monsters, not forgotten, fallen, but not completely lost in their own eyes. They hold on to the smallest chance that mercy might find them here. But even though they feel bad about it, the law of heaven is not easy. What they didn't just change creation, they ripped it apart. The Nephilim destroy the world. Hearts of people get darker. Violence spreads like a disease. Fear fills the earth, and grief fills heaven. Enoch knows that he shouldn't make promises. His job is to tell the truth. Both the innocent's pain and the guilty's pleas must reach the throne. Finally, he speaks softly. His voice is steady, but every word is full of kindness. He tells the watchers that he will take their requests to the Most High. He won't hide their pain or make their regret seem bigger than it is. There is no more or less than that he will be a witness. A calmness falls. The watchers bow their heads, not in joy or relief. Just because someone really listened, As Enoch walks away, he can feel their eyes on him, full of desperation, heavy with fear of what the answer will be, full of a love they once let go of, but now want more than anything else. Their voices stay behind him, like broken wings hanging in the air between the sky they lost and the ground they fear. Hope and fear were all mixed up, waiting for the last word from heaven. Enoch walks through the quiet halls of heaven, where the voices of the watchers still ring in his ears. Their sadness hangs around him like a cold fog. He can still feel the desperate eyes on him, full of hope that they can barely hold on to. He feels like he has a heavy burden on his shoulders that he never asked for, but he knows he didn't choose this path by accident. He walks with a purpose that was set before he could talk. Enoch is a man of the earth, with a heartbeat like a mortal, but he was chosen to walk among the stars. He is the first person to stand in a space that connects people who live below the sky with people who live above it. To people on dusty ground, he is flesh, weak and small. He is a witness to angels of blazing light, someone who has been given truths that are bigger than him. His heart must be able to hold both worlds at once without breaking. He remembers the lives of the people he left behind as he walks. He always thinks about how hard things are for them. Every family is fighting to stay alive in a world that is getting colder. Every kid trying to do the right thing when it's easy to do the wrong thing. Every sigh of fear when the sun goes down and giants stomp through the fields on the other side of the horizon. Justice is not the only thing that people need. It needs comfort, a reminder that someone cares about their pain and sees it. Enoch can remember faces. A mother holds her child close while shadows move around the edges of the village. A father looks up at the sky and begs a God he can't see for help. Kids playing under trees that seem to be shaking nervously, as if they sense danger in the ground. People still believe in a creator above them, but their faith is shaky, like a candle in the wind. Enoch gets what they mean. He knows how sweet family is, how warm love is, and how painful loss is. He used to live quietly among them, walking through fields that smelled like rain and wheat. His heart beats in time with theirs. He knows they are not perfect, but their hearts want to do good. They fall, but they get back up. They don't have wings, but they want to fly to the sky. The watchers, who used to protect that fragile beauty, forgot it. Their love of people made them blind to the lines that kept things peaceful. They saw weakness and wanted to change it instead of protecting it. Now the same weak person cries out in fear, and heaven hears. Enoch hears what both sides are saying. The angels begged for mercy. People who are overwhelmed by the chaos are crying silently. He is at a crossroads, knowing both pain and hope. A soft hand on his shoulder pulls him out of his thoughts. A soft-spoken guide takes him to a room where starlight flows over marble floors. Above is a dome that sparkles like calm water that shows 1,000 worlds. Enoch's breathing slows, and his heart steadies, as if a calm voice is whispering comfort into his soul. He kneels, not because he has to, but because he feels a natural sense of respect. He speaks softly, but every word carries the weight of everything he has seen. He talks about how people are suffering, the fear that follows them at night, the innocence that keeps trying to grow through thorns. He asks God to help them, give them strength, and keep them safe. His voice gets louder as his love for his people drives each word. Then he changes his tone. He also carries the sadness of the watchers. He talks about how they regret what they did, how they want to go back to the light, and how they want to be loyal again like they used to be. He does not let them off the hook for not following the rules. He does not say that they deserve to be forgiven. He just wants people to see how sad they are, that their hearts be thought about before their fate is set. He wants mercy to be offered if it is still possible. The silence that follows seems to last forever. Enoch stays bent over, waiting not for himself, but for them. He doesn't know what the answer will be, but he believes that whatever happens will be fair. His trust is what keeps him going, a weak thread that doesn't break. There is a voice around him that sounds like calm thunder. The words don't say anything bad about his requests. They praise him for having the courage to speak for people who turned away from the very one he is now talking to. People will not ignore the watchers. They will have to deal with their choices. There must be a reckoning, because the world is groaning under the weight of what they have done. Still, their pleas will be fully heard before a decision is made. What they said won't be lost in the dark. Enoch feels a soft warmth wash over him, as if invisible wings are wrapping around him to support him. He has done what he was supposed to do as a messenger. What is left is the unfolding of fate. A vision that takes his breath away comes to him before he can get up. He sees the earth again, but not exactly how it is. The sky gets darker. The waters are rising. Storms roar over mountains that fall apart. People hold on to anything they can find for shelter, and their cries rise like arrows shot at heaven. The giants let loose destruction, and their rage shakes the world. Innocence sinks under waves of fear and violence. The view changes. There is a glimmer of hope in the chaos, a floating safe place, life saved, a family that chooses to fix what's broken, hope hid behind wood and faith. Enoch understands that judgment doesn't just come to destroy. It comes to guard what still has light. He cries as he watches the world he loves go through a trial. He hurts to see so much pain. But he knows that beyond sadness lies a new beginning. The vision fades, but the pain stays. A soft voice tells him that people won't be left behind. There is a promise in creation that light will rise again, even when darkness says it has won. Enoch slowly gets up and wipes away the last of his tears. He hasn't finished his mission yet. Not yet. The watchers are still waiting for news. People still need hope. He must stay steady between fear below and despair above. His prayers, presence, and bravery keep a path open that no one else can walk. He leaves the room and walks into a hallway that sparkles with soft gold. His heart is heavy, but it is also guided. He knows that love never backs down, even when the future is full of danger. He will carry messages until the last word is spoken. As long as he is needed, he will stand between angels and people. He doesn't own his life anymore. Heaven writes a story with every breath he takes, and it is his. Enoch is on the edge of something that can't be changed. It feels like every star has dimmed in the halls of heaven, as if they are getting ready for a moment that will change history forever. He has spoken for the watchers. He has held their sad words in his hands like fragile glass. He has shared their sadness, their fears that made them shake, and the hope they were too scared to feel. Now is the time for heaven to answer. He can feel them before he sees them. The watchers are not far away, and their wings are down and their shoulders are heavy with guilt. The same beings who used to move with confidence and shine now refuse to look up. They remember how bright they used to be and how purpose guided them like air. They remember being sent to earth with the trust that they would care for and guide people. That all seems like a long time ago. Enoch walks slowly toward them because he knows how heavy what he is carrying is. When he gets there, they look up, hope flickering in eyes that used to see the beauty of creation. The leader looks at Enoch's face, looking for any sign of mercy, no matter how small. Their hearts are clear, even though they haven't said anything yet. Tell us there's still a way back. He wants to be able to comfort them right away, but the truth needs time. The heavens are waiting for a time when silence must end. A soft light starts to gather around Enoch, moving like breath that can be seen. It means that the decision is ready. The watchers get ready. The whole world hears a voice from heaven. It is strong but calm, and it is sad but strong. It tells the story of the decisions that brought us here. They were sent to lead, not to rule. To guard, not to ruin. They thought people were beautiful, but instead of honoring that, they wanted to make it look like them. They taught things that weren't supposed to be known. They tied people to wants that they couldn't yet control. The end result is chaos that is now killing the earth. No one speaks up. There are no arguments. Every word is so true that it could break a heart that is already breaking. The voice does not forget what the watchers did that was good. It doesn't take away their faith before they fell. But what they did has caused problems that need to be dealt with. If we let injustice happen, love itself gets weaker. The world must be fixed before hope is lost forever. Enoch can feel the air getting tighter, like a bowstring being pulled. He looks for kindness in the judgment that is being spoken. It seems to be happening, but not in the way the watchers wanted. They won't be free. Not right now. Not while the ground is still shaking from what they did wrong. They will be taken away from the world they hurt. They will have to face a prison that is shaped to show how serious what they did was. Heaven heard their cries and heard them. We understand their regret, but feeling bad about it isn't enough to fix it. Some of the watchers jump. Some people shut their eyes. Some people give up and fall to their knees. The leader bows his head to show he agrees. He doesn't argue. He doesn't beg anymore. He has already let out everything he was feeling when Enoch took his words up. He was afraid of this moment, but he always knew it was fair. Enoch watches them with a broken heart. He sees angels who used to shine like morning light, but are now having trouble keeping. They're shaped together because of how ashamed they are. He feels compassion pulling at him, even though they have done bad things. They are paying the price for a choice that was made out of curiosity, desire, and love, but went wrong. Heaven keeps talking. The children they had with humans, the giants who crush innocence under their feet, will also see the end of their rule. They will not keep using fear to change the world. We won't let violence win. The world will be cleaned up so that good can live on. They helped make the ruins, so a new beginning must come from them. Enoch can sense the sadness behind these words. This sentence does not come from anger or cruelty. It's a painful stitch in the fabric of creation that keeps everything from coming apart. The watchers take one last look at Enoch. Some people thank him for trying. Some people ask for a miracle that can't happen. Their wings get even dimmer, and the colors fade like embers losing heat. They are not led to their fate in metal chains, but in chains of what they have done. Not like the one they chose before, but guided by heaven's hand, a descent begins. Their path goes down into a dark place that will hold them until the time of renewal they were promised. Enoch reaches out as if instinct might stop them, but his arm falls, unable to move. He is a messenger, not a savior. His job is not to change what heaven says, but to honor both love and justice equally. As they fade into the distance, a feeling of sadness comes over everything. The angels who are still in heaven do not celebrate. There is no victory in the deaths of their own brothers, just the quiet pain of watching someone you care about go off course. Enoch lowers his head. The voice from heaven speaks to him again, this time in a softer tone that is full of thanks. People have noticed how brave he is to speak up for others. He has been loyal to the truth and shown compassion to those who deserved to be punished. He has stood strong in the middle of things that are bigger than any one person. Heaven can see his heart clearly and knows that it is steady. The voice tells him that this isn't the end of his involvement. There is a bigger storm on the way. Not just angels have to face the truth. There is a human side to this history. Some people hold on to goodness, while others give in to bad things. What happens next will determine whether the earth lives or dies. Enoch takes a deep breath and tries to get enough strength to keep going. The path ahead is dark with the shadow of judgment, but it is also lit by rays of hope. A man named Noah is still building down below, but he doesn't know why. Somewhere above, divine patience watches every choice people make and waits for those who are still willing to walk toward the light. Enoch starts to walk again, but his steps are slower, heavier, and steady. He has seen things that few people have seen. He has knowledge that will change how people remember creation. He knows that the world he loves is getting ready for a trial that will shake the oceans and mountains. He still believes in the little sparks that shine in the hearts of everyday people, sparks that won't go out, no matter how dark the sky gets. The Watchers have said their final word. They end their chapter with sadness. Another chapter is about to begin. This one will test how strong people are and show how faith can be found in everyday life. The story is still being written. So Enoch keeps going. Enoch faced his job with a calm determination that seemed bigger than his life. He had seen places that no normal person could imagine, heard voices that shaped the stars, and seen choices that would be remembered for all time. He didn't collect knowledge just for himself. It weighed heavily on his heart. It was a duty. He knew that people would still need help, clarity, and warnings long after he was gone. He kept the visions in his heart, waiting for the right time to write them down in words that would last longer than civilizations, before he ever wrote them down. These stories lived in him like stars that he could look back on in silence. Every time he met an angel, every time he trembled before God's glory, and every time a fallen being cried out in pain for forgiveness, they all became part of the mission that was forming inside him. He had seen both the beauty of perfection and the sad results of going against the rules. If there were no records, people would forget. Corruption would rise again if people didn't get reminders. He knew that memory was weak on its own. Writing would protect him from losing important history. On a quiet evening, he realized that what he would write would be more than just the story of heaven and earth. It would also be the story of choice. In these memories, light and dark were both there. People couldn't understand what was right unless they also knew how far they could fall. He did not judge while he wrote. He looked. He kept going. He let the truth speak through him. His fingers shook because he knew these words were more than just reflections. They were orders for people who would come after them. They would help leaders who wanted to do the right thing, remind people who were tempted to go down wrong paths, and comfort hearts that wanted to be with God. He felt the unseen guidance of the Most High, shaping every thought into a thread that would later become a tapestry of revelation. Every little thing was important. He remembered the first steps on heavenly paths, the tall watchers who used to protect people, and how sad it was when they fell. He felt sorry for even those who made mistakes because he had spoken up for them. As he wrote down their pleas and the serious answer that came from above, he remembered their tears. He knew that people would argue about these things for a long time, but it was his job to say them clearly and without any lies. He would sometimes stop writing in the middle of a sentence, to remember how bright a place was where there were no shadows. That kind of light could blind memory with awe if he didn't hold on to it tightly. He took a deep breath and felt at home on the ground. Every description of heaven had to seem real to people who would never see what he had seen. His words would connect people, just like he had once connected the Watchers and the Eternal Judge. Angels stayed with him even after he traveled. He could feel them close by, directing his attention. They told him that these writings were not meant to make him look good. They were meant to keep people safe and follow the plans of creation. He was the best person for this job because he was humble. He didn't want praise for being chosen. He just answered the call with quiet loyalty. Some nights he had a hard time with his feelings. He thought of children born into chaos, giants whose footsteps shook the ground, and people who were hurt by powers that were never meant to touch flesh. He remembered the sadness of seeing the world drift away from its purpose from above. His pen also caught those feelings so that the truth wouldn't seem cold or far away. It wasn't true that history didn't have any feelings. He wrote to keep the heart of the story as well as the facts. As the records grew, they became a library of warnings and wonders. There were stories about stars acting like people, worlds stacked like steps leading to forever, and pages full of destiny written long before people learned how to talk. He wrote down the times, the judgments, and the orders that put creation back on track. He made sure he didn't miss any details. Each part added to the whole. He also wrote down hope. His time in the heavens showed him that justice was always kind. He had felt peace wash over him when he should have been scared. That peace reminded him that the highest did not want to destroy, but to restore. The writings were both a warning and a promise. People would feel better as they read, knowing that even when darkness spreads, a greater light watches over everyone. He sometimes thought about who would read what he wrote. Would future generations value them or think of them as old myths? He knew that over time, the truth often becomes a story. He still believed that someone, somewhere, would need what he wrote. At first, maybe only a few people would get it, but later, crowds would find these records again and see how powerful they are. He didn't care about the numbers. It was about following a calling he couldn't ignore. He kept writing through the changing seasons, and each chapter kept parts of heaven's voice. Like a stream guided by divine hands, prophecies flowed through him. He wrote down the names of angels, details of judgment, visions of the Messiah coming, and hints of a future renewal. While he worked, the future felt close to him, like he was reading a book that had already been finished before he ever started. He would close his eyes and let the silence speak for him. His recordings needed room to breathe. He had to stop and think about how heavy some of the things he learned were. But comfort always came back, soft and steady. He wasn't the only one who did this. He was chosen because he could keep sacred things safe without using them to get power. His job did not make him better. Every day, it made him feel more humble. He took a long, slow breath when he finally put the last word in place. The future now had the story in its hands. Records that started in heaven now lived on earth, where time and memory couldn't easily erase them. His writings were no longer just about what he had done. They became something that all people could pass down. People would remember his name not because he wanted to be famous, but because he did his job well. The scrolls told the story of how celestial beings rose and fell, how fragile human souls were, God's tears and the hope of being saved. They held the truth of life in its best and worst times. These pages would help future generations understand why choices matter and how love lasts even when people judge it. He put down his pen and paper, feeling neither proud nor sorry, just a calm sense that he had done what was asked of him. The records would still be there long after he stopped talking. They would stay as proof of a man who walked with God and came back to tell the world what he had seen. The order for the flood didn't come out of nowhere like a storm. It rose slowly, like a tide building beneath creation, gathering sorrow and inevitability until the moment came when the world could not go on as it was. It started in silence, in the deep chambers of the heavenly court, where divine grief was stronger than divine patience. When love has to choose discipline, there is a special ache. That was the pain that filled the sky as the choice was made. The world below had turned into a place where innocence was silenced by cruelty, where the strong ate the weak, and where voices that used to be thankful had become selfishly hungry. The giants walked around without any limits. The watchers, who had once been noble protectors, had gotten caught up in earthly corruption. People were lost and hurt, and they took paths that only made things worse. What had been made with love was now falling apart. The Most High was not only angry at this mess. Disappointment is too small a word for how the Creator feels about not being able to walk with his children in the cool of the day. It looked like the skies were crying. The rivers carried whispers of things getting worse. People all over the world thought that things had changed in a way that they were never meant to. In the end, the flood's order was an order of sadness. To protect what was still good, it had to be undone. It was a purification that would require everything to start over. Enoch had known that something big was going to happen. He had seen visions of waters rising higher than mountains, winds howling like animals, and the sky getting darker because of heavy rain. He didn't see these things with excitement or joy. He could feel every heartbeat of the people who would die. He saw kids who didn't know what was going to happen to them when the sun came up. He knew how scared people would be when the first raindrops fell and didn't stop. Every picture made his chest feel tighter, because the world he lived in was still full of people he cared about. Even those who had gone too far still had the same breath of life that had been given to them at the beginning. Enoch's human soul felt the heartbreak of heaven. Angels' talks got more serious. They no longer talked about people with respect. Their voices were full of sadness, like that of caretakers watching their loved ones break beyond recognition. The watchers who had fallen could feel judgment closing in on them. Their children, who were big and scary, ruled by fear. The spirit of humanity was breaking and bending toward the dark. People stopped noticing how bad things were getting because stories of violence were so common. But there were still a few hearts that wanted to do the right thing, like candles fighting a storm that was getting worse. Enoch knew that salvation would not be lost forever. The floodwaters would make a new base. He had seen Noah in his dreams, a man who walked by faith and was chosen not because he was perfect, but because he listened. Enoch felt better knowing that, but it didn't make the sadness that hung over the coming destruction any less. He had sent messages telling people to turn back before it was too late. A few people listened for a short time. Most people laughed and moved on. Warnings don't always seem urgent until something bad happens. Enoch stood alone for a moment under a sky full of stars, thinking about how fragile life really was. The stars looked like they would last forever, but even they were made by words. The Creator's will was the most important thing. He understood that the worst thing wasn't destruction itself, but the choices that led to it. Having free will was a gift, but it also meant being responsible. Humanity had abused that gift by letting desire take over reason and pride blind them to the risks of messing with things they shouldn't. The Watchers gave people knowledge that made them feel bad instead of good. The obsession with beauty grew. Strength turned into tyranny. Interest turned into buying. He remembered the first time he had seen the earth from the tops of the clouds. It had sparkled with hope. Now, imagining the waters covering fields, cities, and memories made his heart hurt like it was being cut open. Instead of blossoming, lives would be swallowed. Even so, the order did not have any anger in it. The flood wasn't revenge. It was a restoration. To start over, you often have to get rid of things that can't be fixed as they are. The angels who were in charge of carrying out the flood did so with shaking wings. Some cried because they had taken care of these people for generations. The floodwaters weren't just real. They carried the pain of the gods. There was a tear from heaven in every drop of rain. Enoch realized that the flood was a way of mourning when he thought about it. Creation itself cried out, and the tears would change the world. Noah gathered materials for the ark in a way that gave hope to heaven. He did what others said was impossible, but he kept going. His neighbors made fun of him because they couldn't understand why anyone would get ready for a disaster they had never seen. For as long as anyone could remember, the rain had been light. The thought of never-ending rain seemed like a scary story for kids. People kept going about their business, even when the clouds formed in ways they hadn't before. They didn't want to see the warning painted across the sky. During this time, Enoch prayed a lot, speaking for the world even when the world didn't want to hear him. Even though his heart felt heavier every day, his compassion never went away. He knew that some lessons could only be learned after something bad happened. Maybe the generations that came after would value goodness more because they would know how easily it could be lost if it wasn't protected. As the order got closer to being carried out, animals started to move on their own, guided by divine instinct. They took paths they had never taken before and gathered around Noah's Ark as if the call of heaven had brought back memories from long ago. The sight of them coming should have been enough to shake even the most stubborn heart. But many still turned away, holding on to their disbelief until it was too late. The sky finally changed. The air got thick and heavy, full of promise that couldn't be seen. People only stopped when the rain started to fall in heavy sheets. Not the soft blessing they were used to, but a downpour that wouldn't stop. Some people realized too late. Panic took the place of denial, but there was no way to escape the rising tide. Enoch, who lived before the flood, stayed a witness through his writings. His records would be like the past talking to the future. He knew that people who lived long after the flood would need to remember why it happened. If we forget how much corruption costs, history will repeat itself. He hoped that the story of these waters would help people remember to be wise, kind, and humble. Even when it came in the form of tragedy, renewal was a blessing. After the flood, when the waters would calm down and the first green shoot would appear from the soft ground, the world would breathe again. The pain would bring hope back to life. Creation would remember the song it sang at first. The Most High would look at the new earth and not be sad. Instead, he would quietly hope that this time, hearts would choose the light that had always been calling to them. The floodwaters did not wash away hope. It clung to the wood of an ark that floated through a quiet world. where every crashing wave brought back memories of a world that used to be loud. A family and the living heartbeat of creation lived together in that ship. The outside world was very dark, but there was a small light inside. Noah and his family were the ones who had to keep a fragile promise. The world had been stripped down to its core, but the future was waiting patiently inside that boat. Noah's every breath reminded him that the story was still going on. The ink was being changed to a calmer color. It felt like years went by inside the ark as rain pounded on the roof and thunder rumbled all around them. Noah would sometimes put his hand on the wooden wall and feel the storm's relentless power trying to wipe out everything that had been corrupted. He still believed the same voice that had once walked with Enoch. God had seen enough goodness in his heart to give him a new start. That thought kept him calm when fear tried to take over. His wife, sons, and their families all shared that burden of hope, even though they all had their own worries. It is one thing to live through destruction. Rebuilding from its ashes is a different story. When the waters finally went down, the ark rested on a mountain, held up by its rocky arms. At first, the silence seemed strange. There are no cities, no crowds, and no giants walking around. The emptiness was scary and calming at the same time. When Noah opened the door, a soft wind blew through the space, something the world had almost forgotten. It felt like stepping outside was like going back to the first morning of creation. The sky was wide and clear. The smell of the air was fresh. Noah stopped for a moment before stepping on the ground, feeling humbled by the responsibility that his family now had. At first, the animals were hesitant to go with him, but then they ran into open fields like kids who had just been let out of jail. Nature was happy to get another chance. The mountains stood by like witnesses to a holy rebirth. The landscape looked strange without signs of people, but it held promise. This time, the world would not have to deal with unchecked pride and violence. Teachings that started with Enoch and flowed into Noah's heart would guide Noah's line. They had a connection that felt like an invisible thread connecting the past to the present. God's promise showed itself in the sky, bending over the clouds in bright colors. That rainbow was more than just a sign. It was a promise made in light, a promise that the earth would never again see such a big flood. This promise made Noah feel safe and warm. The promise didn't make the memory of loss go away, but it did make it less sharp. Noah understood that grace had the last word, not destruction, as he stood under the ark of colors. God kept a way open for people to get home, even when they had gone too far. Noah's sons learned from the strength that led their father. They saw him pray with thanks, even though his hands were sore from working on the house. They saw him plant the first vineyard, which brought life back to the ground that had been flooded. They saw him take care of the animals that would bring life back to the fields and forests. These small acts were the beginnings of a future civilization. Every act of kindness was a promise that this new world would not be based on violence. The children born from Noah's legacy would tell stories about mercy and learn lessons not only from holy books, but also from living. But the shadow of the past didn't go away completely. People were still able to forget. Noah knew that hearts could grow weak over time, especially when there were a lot of blessings. He tried to teach his family to be humble and to see life as a gift that should be cherished, not a right that should be abused. He didn't tell his stories about the world before the flood to scare people. He told them to remind them. Corruption can start with even the smallest selfish desire. Remembering was a way to keep history from happening again. Future generations after Noah would look at their family tree and see strength shining through. They would get a world that was shaped by both mercy and judgment. Some would respect that balance and walk with respect, while others would slowly drift off the path. But the promise was still woven into time. That rainbow always came out after storms, even when people messed up. It was a quiet reminder that hope is stronger than failure. Noah's line would eventually give rise to kings, prophets, leaders, and dreamers. Abraham would be one of them, and he would become the father of many nations. His faith would be like Enoch's devotion, connecting the first obedience with the future revelation. The hope that lived on in the ark would later shine through David's psalms, Solomon's search for wisdom, and the bravery of many others whose actions made history meaningful. The world would hear heavenly guidance again through Noah's descendants, who would speak it through the voices of those who were willing to listen. This line would also bring a promise that was better than all the others. A savior would come many centuries later, born into the same world that had once been full of evil. This child would have a light that darkness could never completely put out. Noah didn't know everything that would happen in the future, but he was sure that God's story was still going on. The flood had made a way for salvation that would one day reach every heart that was willing to open. On quiet nights, when the stars twinkled above like little lanterns, Noah would look up and hear the voices of his ancestors who had walked with God before him. He would picture Enoch still watching over and caring about what happened to the people below. It was comforting to know that the wisdom Enoch wrote down would help later generations grow in their faith. Death and distance had not broken their bond. When the world seemed ready to forget about goodness, both were chosen to help keep it alive. Children played in the fields again, and their laughter brought music back to the earth. Instead of ambition, new families built homes with love. The world was starting to breathe again. Hope didn't need to shout. It just had to keep going. It pulsed through everything that got off the ark, getting stronger with each new start. The promise that Noah's line kept was more than just survival. It was the strength of light, a reminder that dawn is always just over the horizon, even when the night seems long and heavy. Love chose not to give up, so humanity got another chance, not because it deserved one. Enoch's words flowed through the ages like a gentle stream, easy to follow and good for the soul. People talked about his teachings around campfires, and storytellers told the stories he saw in the sky. What he wrote meant a lot for a long time. It changed how early families thought about God's love, justice, and the world above them that they couldn't see. But as the years went by, people forgot about Enoch. This wasn't because his wisdom lost value, but because the world kept moving away from the things that used to keep it stable. Change tends to push the old aside, and people don't always know what they've lost. There were powerful kingdoms all over the world, and each one had its own beliefs and goals. Laws were made, empires fought, and new customs became popular. With all that noise going on, it was easy to ignore the writings of one humble man from before the flood. Some people said his stories were too strange. Some people thought they were too old to be important. The scrolls that used to hold his visions were put away little by little, copied less often, and only those who were still afraid of forgetting the truth kept them safe. Even so, the rest of the world moved on, and Enoch's voice got quieter. There were times when his teachings were almost completely gone. Texts can be weak, especially when they are passed around by people who don't know how valuable they are. Ink can fade, parchment can break, and in times of war or conquest, sacred libraries can turn to ash in a single night. Enoch's writings were on the edge of disappearing many times, just like the oldest stories. A few people who cared about tradition fought to protect them, passing the knowledge from teacher to student in secret, hoping that time would not put out the spark. Religion itself became a place where people argued and set strict limits. Some leaders chose which writings would be copied and shared with a lot of people and which would be put away. Some people couldn't see how a man who lived before the flood and went to heaven, instead of dying, was still important because people had changed so much. Scholars considered what to preserve, but their decisions were influenced by their own fears and struggles. The Book of Enoch was not included in the lines that separated acceptable doctrine from the rest, not erased, but put on shelves where only a few people who are interested would ever find them. Ideas don't just go away when you put them out of sight, though. Enoch's writings stayed with me like a faint melody that I could hear behind a door that wouldn't close. When early believers talked about a good man who walked with God, they thought of him. His story was tucked away in the Bible, where it was only briefly mentioned. This left anyone who really listened with questions that needed answers. Who was this man who never died? What made heaven reach down to lift him up? Those little reminders kept people interested, even though the whole picture was still hidden in the dark. Some communities, especially those that were far from the political centers of religion, still loved the Book of Enoch. They read it at home. They said it with awe. For them, Enoch wasn't a strange person or a long-lost ancestor. He was a guide who helped them understand spiritual mysteries through his visions. They saw in his words the start of redemption's story and hints of a savior who would come long before he did. Still, their devotion wasn't strong enough to bring the book back into the mainstream of belief. Languages changed as time went on. To stay alive, scrolls had to be translated over and over again. Every translation was a weak link that could break if it wasn't done carefully. Thank goodness some hands were soft, careful, and respectful. Enoch's work would have been lost completely without those quiet guardians. Even though they tried, a lot of pages were lost, and whole sections disappeared into history like sand slipping through fingers. What we have now is only a small part of what he wrote, a remnant of a much bigger story that was once told clearly. It's sad when people forget things, especially things that came from a place of purity. Enoch wrote because people needed help. He brought the warnings of heaven not to scare people, but to help them walk more safely. He saw beauty that was beyond his wildest dreams, and then he came back to share it with people who felt stuck in the grind of everyday life. But for a long time, his voice was silenced, and the comfort he once gave was gone. Still, some truths have a way of coming back. Old manuscripts sit in dusty rooms until someone comes along and looks at them with new eyes. When curiosity comes back, hidden wisdom starts to stir. People have been thinking about what else they might have forgotten lately. They looked through old books and found Enoch waiting patiently, like a light in a drawer that just needed to be opened. The discovery of older copies sparked interest again, as if the past had been quietly waiting for the right time to come back. The loss of Enoch's writings did not completely erase his impact. Parts of his story lived on through scripture, tradition, and memory, a name that is spoken with respect. People say that God was so happy with this man that he took him up to heaven without letting him die. These little pieces kept his legacy alive until his full message could be found again. People are drawn back to old questions every time his writings come to light. What did he see that was beyond the sky? What truths were too important to keep to yourself? It's sad to think about how much wisdom almost disappeared from our shared story. When voices like Enoch's are silenced, the world becomes a bit colder, even though we don't know why. The loss shows how easily spiritual treasures can be lost when people are more concerned with power or comfort. But the rediscovery shows something good. Truth lasts. It stays under the surface, waiting for hearts that are ready to listen again. People today are looking for more understanding, and they are drawn to those old visions. Enoch's writings remind them that there is more to life than what they can see. They give you a way to see the meaning behind every breath. That is why the story of how they went missing is important. It shows how thin the line can be between remembering and forgetting. It also shows how kind it is to give people a second chance. People are starting to remember things they almost forgot, and as a result, Enoch's connection to humanity is getting stronger when old teachings come back. They sometimes bring a quiet message for the present. Don't lose what is important just because the world is loud or busy. Keep safe what feeds the soul. Enoch's voice may have faded for a while, but it never stopped calling out from the past. The world can now appreciate a wisdom that has survived against all odds, like a flame that stays lit even when the wind tries its hardest to blow it out. The story of Enoch lived like a heartbeat buried deep in the ground for hundreds of years. It was still alive, but time had silenced it. His writings, which were once held sacred and respected by early communities, faded from public view so slowly that it seemed like history itself had hidden them away on purpose. But the truth always finds a way to get back to the light. Enoch's words waited, kept safe in a place that the world's great empires didn't notice. They were neither forgotten in essence nor destroyed by the tides of dominance that shaped religious history. His books were still loved in one country, Ethiopia, which is full of ancient memories. The Western religious world grew without Enoch's full voice, but Ethiopia protected it as a living gift based on devotion instead of debate. The Book of Enoch was not a lost relic covered in dust in Ethiopia. It was part of worship, the liturgy, and who they were. It was written in Ge'ez by careful monks, whose hands shaped each letter as if they were keeping something sent from the heavens. Families passed down the idea that Enoch had walked with God, and his writings were seen as valuable windows into a world that people couldn't see. The old Ethiopian church never doubted whether his story was true. They just kept reading and teaching it, while the rest of the world got rid of whole chapters of spiritual heritage and made their accepted scriptures smaller. It is amazing that a text that could have easily disappeared forever was kept alive by the dedication of just one region. For almost 2,000 years, European scholars only had bits and pieces of Enoch's story. They liked how they could see Enoch's influence in the scriptures, especially in the New Testament letter of Jude, which quotes Enoch directly. They still thought the whole book was gone, though. They talked about him like he was a ghostwriter, someone whose voice they could only hear through echoes. People thought his story was too strange and too far from the accepted canon. A lot of people thought it must have been destroyed a long time ago. But while they thought, monasteries in the highlands of Ethiopia were quietly keeping beautifully preserved manuscripts that contained the whole work. That difference shows a strong truth. Sometimes the survival of sacred knowledge depends on quiet devotion, not fame or power. The modern rediscovery started in the 1700s. European explorers who traveled through Ethiopia found the old manuscripts. They were shocked to find the whole Book of Enoch alive and well, written on parchment that felt warm from the dedication of people who cared about it instead of dusty from being left behind. As soon as scholars looked at the book, they knew they had something special in their hands. It was like opening a window to ideas that had an effect on early Christians, but were lost before Christianity became a worldwide religion. Readers outside of Ethiopia could see Enoch's visions in full for the first time in hundreds of years. The mysteries of the Watchers, the lessons about angels who went astray, the prophecy of coming judgment, and the deeper identity of a righteous Messiah-like figure were all suddenly open again. As translations became more common in the 1800s and 1900s, people began to ask questions about faith that had been dormant for a long time. There was a mix of excitement, curiosity, and sometimes worry. Enoch's descriptions of the heavens were too detailed to ignore. His depiction of the cosmic insurrection provoked significant theological discourse. His writings had an impact on early Christianity, but they were later removed from most traditions. This led to debates about how the Bible we know today was formed. Rediscovery did more than just bring a book back to life. It opened doors that had been shut for a long time to spiritual exploration, history, and identity. People in religious circles weren't the only ones who heard Enoch's voice again. Historians acknowledged that his writings elucidated ancient beliefs regarding the origins of evil, the function of divine messengers, and humanity's moral conflict. Anthropologists discovered indications that Enoch's concepts may have influenced cultural comprehension across various regions. Linguists looked at Jaya's manuscripts to find clues about how people wrote in the past. Even scientists were interested. Researchers were curious if ancient knowledge of the skies was more advanced than people thought because of the strange things Enoch described, like cosmic structures and heavenly bodies. Every new study showed that Enoch's disappearance didn't lessen his impact. In fact, the return of his writings showed how influential he had always been. The rediscovery also gave a kind of poetic justice. A book that had been pushed to the edges came back with more attention and a wider audience than ever before. In some ways, it was like Enoch's life. He lived outside of the normal world and was taken to the heavens instead of being buried in the ground. His writing went down that same path. They went away from the world's attention, but then they came back like a hidden treasure that was finally found at the right time. The timing seems important. As people began to ask deeper questions, learn more quickly, and be interested in old texts, Enoch's words came back to challenge old ideas and spark new ways of thinking. The Ethiopians who kept the book safe were now known as guardians of a priceless spiritual legacy. Their loyalty had kept something bigger than any one community alive. After the translations were done, scholars and theologians from all over the world began to give Ethiopia credit not just for the discovery, but also for protecting it over the years when others didn't know about it. It made it clear that spiritual history isn't limited to one place or culture. Sometimes the deepest roots grow in places that the world's centers don't see. Enoch's writings, coming back into the public eye, created an atmosphere of rediscovery that went far beyond religious tradition. There were a lot of documentaries, books, and academic talks. His cosmic visions gave artists, writers, and filmmakers new ideas. People who liked mysteries started to look into the message about God's mercy and justice that was woven into his story. The more people read the book, the more they realized it had something special to offer. Its mix of wonder, warning, sadness, and hope touches on the most basic parts of being human. It makes the reader think about how important choices are and how there are powers greater than us that are always watching. Even though Enoch had been quiet for hundreds of years, he still cared about the future of humanity. His writings remind us that every time period has moral tests. The Watchers fell when they crossed lines that were meant to keep creation safe. Their story is a warning about having power without wisdom. It tells you not to forget the balance between the world of people and the order of the gods. Those ideas suddenly seem important again in a world where technology is growing faster than we can keep up with it. Many readers have wondered if Enoch's prophetic warnings were only for the past, or if they were meant to wake up future generations. The revival of Enoch's writings has given the world a new way to look at things. It shows that human history is always changing. What seems to be gone can come back even stronger. Knowledge can go to sleep for a long time and then wake up just when you need it. Every manuscript found again in Ethiopia had not only ink and parchment, but also centuries of silent strength. When modern readers read them, they become a bridge across time that connects early visions of heaven to today's search for meaning. Enoch rises again, not as a ghost from the past, but as a living voice that reminds people of how weak they are and what their future holds. People often think that there is only one old book with Enoch's name on it when they hear about his writings. A lot of people don't know that his legacy spread to more than one tradition. The second book of Enoch, also known as the Slavonic Enoch, or the Book of the Secrets of Enoch, is just as amazing and mysterious as the first book of Enoch that the Ethiopian manuscript tradition kept. This text takes the reader on a journey through many heavens, which is much more than just the idea of paradise that most people have. It shows a picture of the universe where the layers of reality unfold on top of each other, like a divine structure above the human world. This Enochic writing tells the story of his rise while he is still in his physical body, with the help of bright angels who take him to places that get stranger, more beautiful, and more overwhelming. In this version, Enoch is not only a messenger, but also a witness to cosmic structures that few people have ever seen. The trip starts with a sudden, bright break in Enoch's normal life. Two huge angels show up, their faces too bright to look at directly. They don't just talk to Enoch about the heavens. They take him there. He gets up and goes through the first heaven, where he sees a lot of angels watching over the paths of stars and clouds. There is a deep order here, and it feels like every tiny part of creation is being watched and guided. Enoch finds out that nothing in the sky moves by chance. Every flash of light is saved. The first taste of the divine realm shows how closely the heavens watch over the earth. Even when they are quiet, the tone changes suddenly when he enters the second heaven. There is no peace here. He sees fallen angels here, locked up and stuck in a state of sadness and regret. They beg Enoch to speak for them, hoping that maybe the Creator will show mercy if a good person does so. Their presence reminds us that going against God's will doesn't bring freedom, it only makes things worse. The sky is more than just beautiful and musical. They are also fair, and fair remembers. Enoch is shaken by seeing these beings punished, but he keeps going, guided by the angels who are not affected by despair. The third heaven is a place where things are both the same and different. At first, Enoch sees a paradise full of life, where trees sparkle with jewels instead of fruit, and the air is full of happiness. It is a world that has never been damaged. The souls of the good are waiting for their reward here, like seeds waiting for a spring that will never end. But on the other side of this same world is a terrifying sight, a pit of torment for people who made the world a worse place. Souls who didn't listen to wisdom are surrounded by flames, freezing winds, and creatures that punish them. Enoch remembers that both divine kindness and punishment come from the same truth because the third heaven is split. There is no room for lies in the foundation of cosmic order. Every layer of heaven gets stranger, more amazing, and more hidden. Enoch sees how time works in the fourth heaven. He sees the sun and moon go through their cycles with the help of angels who make sure that day and night never fail. There are rules here, and they are followed exactly. Time isn't a coincidence. People don't often think about how light is controlled when they're doing everyday things. The heavens are always moving to keep life going on Earth. Enoch realizes that life is not random after seeing how carefully the universe is run. It is cared for by hands that can't be seen. There are sad angels in the fifth heaven. They used to be strong, but now they look tired and unhappy. They are waiting for a decision about what will happen to them in the future. Their sadness shows another truth. Even heavenly beings can be unsure. They know what happens when loyalty wavers. It gives Enoch a haunting understanding that freedom comes with a lot of responsibility. No matter where you live, in the sixth heaven, Enoch meets beings who write down everything that happens on Earth. They see everything. Every secret, every whisper, and every plan is written down. Angels are in charge of the order of nations, the rise and fall of rulers, the seasons, the elements, and fate. Enoch doesn't see the structure of authority as chaotic. Instead, he sees it as a layered system where each role is connected to the next. Power is never given without a reason. It is always measured. People watch leaders. Long before earthly courts say it, justice is set up. Then comes the seventh heaven, which is the highest place a person can go. Here, light doesn't just shine. It roars like a living thing. Songs of unimaginable beauty come from choirs of angels that are too strong to look at. In this space, the closeness of the Creator becomes too much to handle. Enoch's body is getting weaker because of the weight of such glory, like a candle in the sun. In this last place, he knows that love is what holds the universe together, not just strength. The angels who live closest to this light are pure and powerful in ways that people have never imagined. In this text, Enoch not only becomes a visitor, but he also changes into something else. The divine presence transforms him, illuminating his visage and imparting knowledge beyond the grasp of earthly scholars or prophets. He learns where everything came from, what will happen to the good and the bad in the future, and what part people play in the plan of creation as it unfolds. The Creator talks to Enoch directly and calls him a cherished scribe. He has to write down everything he has seen so that people in the future will know that heaven watches over earth with love and care. In the book, spiritual dimensions are not just vague ideas. They are layered realities. After going up into the cosmos, Enoch comes back to Earth. You can see how he has changed. People are afraid of the light in his face. They see that he doesn't look like a man who only belongs on the ground anymore. He has secrets that are so heavy that they can't be spoken without breaking people's ideas of what is normal. Even though his journey seems to be over, the things he learned will continue to affect how people think about heaven, angels, and the fate of the soul. The second book of Enoch gives us a vision of the universe that is both dreamlike and very well organized. It goes against the idea that heaven is one place. Instead, it shows a universe that is full of meaning. Every realm has a name, a purpose, and a way to move. These hidden heights are not separate from the human world. They are very much a part of it. People can see even the smallest choices. Even the most silent prayers go up. Enoch's journey indicates that the spiritual realm is nearer than we perceive. existing just beyond the veil of daily existence. The Slavic Christian tradition kept this book alive, and old manuscripts kept it safe long before modern scholars paid attention to it. Its rediscovery added another piece to the puzzle of ancient belief. It still interests readers because it gives a clear picture of the unseen and a spirituality that is full of wonder instead of vague ideas. Enoch is not only a historical figure, he is also a bridge that connects people to mysteries that are beyond their reach. He reminds people that the heavens are huge, layered, and full of life. In the old stories, there comes a time when Enoch is no longer just a man who walks with God. He goes through a change that changes the very core of who he is. He is taken beyond the role of a prophet and the job of a scribe into something that even the heavens bow down to. Angels speak his new name with respect, and it becomes a secret name. He turns into This change is one of the most mysterious and amazing things that ancient mystical traditions have written about. It indicates that a human existence, when in harmony with divine intent, can ascend to a status of remarkable influence. The quiet man who loved peace, Enoch, becomes the prince of the presence. This new form has more power than the angels who used to guide him. It changes how heaven and earth talk to each other. It feels like seeing light change, reality when you read about the moment of change. Enoch doesn't just get a title, he feels better in every way. His body is remade with a light that no flesh can hold. His knowledge grows until he can see the patterns in the universe. Angels' voices announce his new job. They put clothes on him that are made not of fabric but of light itself. They put a crown on his head that shines with stars. They give him wings that stretch across time like the dawn. His voice sounds like thunder and a promise at the same time. The person who used to need angels to help him now stands among them as a leader. There is a lot of mystery around the name Metatron. For a long time, scholars and mystics have been curious about where this name came from. Some people say it means the one who sits beyond the throne. Some people think it means the keeper of divine measure, the heavenly guide who keeps creation in balance. Some people also think that the name means someone who became more powerful and in charge than the Creator. The title signifies a significant transformation, regardless of its origin. Enoch is no longer going to heaven. He joins the government of it. Angels must treat him with respect because of how important he is. The trust that people have in Metatron is shown in the tasks he has to do. He becomes the voice that tells the angels what the Creator wants them to do. He keeps track of every decision, judgment, and decree made in heaven about the future of nations and souls. He is in charge of the Book of Life and the Book of Deeds. He knows not only what has happened and what is happening now, but also what will happen in the future. His pen changes people's lives. His presence maintains the divine order. One of the most amazing things about this change is that Metatron becomes the main link between God and all of creation. He is the one who is closest to the throne of light. This closeness does not make him different from people. It makes his role as a bridge even more important. He knows what it means to fight, to make choices, and to have hope. He remembers how the ground felt under his feet, how scared people are in the dark, and how restless hearts long for peace. That memory stays with me. Instead, it becomes the main reason he serves. His ability to understand others makes him more powerful. There are stories about how angels first reacted to his change. Some people were nervous. They had seen Enoch as a mortal, weak, and small compared to their own great power. Seeing him now dressed in a higher position than theirs made them confused. Some people asked why a person should rise so high. These reactions show something important about how Metatron changed. It wasn't a prize just for him. It was a message to the universe. People can do a lot more than what they can see. The Creator does not judge value based on power or time. It is measured by how devoted, right, and brave you are to live faithfully in a world that often forgets about heaven. There is also a scary part to Metatron's new form. His brightness gets so strong that anyone who isn't ready to see him could be overwhelmed or destroyed by it. The story says that his change was so strong that 70 heavenly clothes were needed to hold his light. Angels needed protection just to be close to him. This picture shows how heavy he has become. Metatron holds the fire of God's presence in a small space. He protects everything more fragile below it from that blazing force. His being lets heaven's glory touch creation without destroying it. The change also affects how he talks. His voice is layered when he talks. It has sounds that you can't hear in nature. It has power that flows like a wave through groups of angels. He can make things with his words. In one breath, they can calm storms of disagreement. He doesn't yell to be heard. His voice is its own world, a sound that goes on forever. One of his biggest jobs is to be a heavenly interpreter. Metatron receives the Creator's commands in a way that creation can understand and respond to. There are mystical traditions that look into the connection between Metatron and people after he ascended. Some stories say that he becomes a protector of people who want to learn, especially kids and people who want to find the light. Some people think that he writes down the names of good people in the book of life. People see him as a lawyer who reminds heaven that justice must always come with grace. His kindness didn't go away when his body changed. It grew big like the sky. Kabbalah, which is the name for the Jewish mystical tradition, puts Metatron at the center of its understanding of the spiritual structure of the universe. People think of him as the highest of all created beings and the guide who leads souls up through the heavenly realms. He is close to the edge of the divine mystery. His presence inspires seekers, suggesting that each step toward wisdom leads to transformation. One of the most poetic ways to describe who he is to call him the Lesser YHWH, the one who perfectly reflects divine authority. This does not mean that he is the same as the Creator. It means that he has the job of representing, almost like a royal seal. Angels remember the one who gave Metatron that power when they see him. This title makes it clear that he is not worshipped. He helps. His greatness always points to something bigger than himself. The story of Enoch becoming Metatron is unique because it combines human and holy elements in a way that is not often seen in ancient stories. It implies that the separation between earth and heaven is not constant. A life that listens can cross it. The change is not shown as the result of a hero who wants power. It is shown as the graceful rise of a man who lived a quiet life, with humility and love for the truth. The mystery of Metatron has a comforting message that is often hidden behind the grandeur. A simple life can lead to a purpose that is beyond your wildest dreams. Every good decision sends a little light up. Every kind thing we do connects the earth to heaven. Metatron's story tells us that God doesn't forget people who look for good, even when the world doesn't notice them. Enoch's job as Metatron didn't separate him from the world he had known before. Instead, his eyes saw the whole timeline of the world, from the first light of creation to the last dawn that was still waiting to rise. All ages were like pages in a book that he could see. He could find the beginning of every story and the end of every destiny. He saw a future in those visions where the world would once again shake because of choices made against heaven. The old patterns would come back, but not exactly the same way. They would be echoes and reminders. He thought there would be days when people would be sure of their own power and not see what would happen next. These visions started to show the Messiah's shadow, not as darkness, but as a shape that was getting clearer as light came closer. People didn't give the prophecies of the last days to scare them. They were carefully shaped, with hope wrapped around warnings. Enoch saw kingdoms built on pride, technology rising like Babel all over again, and hearts becoming restless for greatness without respect. He saw people forget the line between the Creator and creation. The weight of greed and neglect would make the earth groan. Violence would become normal, as if life itself was less important than desire. Noah's world would come back in spirit long before the waters would rise. These visions weighed heavily on Enoch's heart. He knew that history often goes back to the point where lessons were first ignored. But he also saw a thin thread that stayed unbroken among all the bad things he saw. There would always be a faithful remnant, people who carried small but strong sparks of light. Even when things seemed darkest, their presence kept hope alive. Enoch saw how heaven got them ready by quietly building their faith and courage in ways that weren't obvious. They would not rise up with swords as conquerors, but as steady voices of truth and kindness. A lot of people would chase power or certainty, but this group would hold on to trust, finding strength not in what they controlled, but in who they followed. The visions moved like clouds, showing scenes of chaos. Enoch saw wars that left scars on the earth, that went on for a long time and were based more on fear than on purpose. Nations would fight each other because they didn't trust each other, and each thought it was right to do so. He heard the cries of people who wanted peace but couldn't leave the path that led away from it. He saw leaders who said they would help people get to safety but instead pulled them deeper into chaos. Spiritual forces were at work under all this noise. The old rebellion that started with the Watchers would come back in different forms and with new ways to tempt people in the midst of all this chaos. The picture of the Messiah became clearer, framed by quiet strength. Enoch knew that the Messiah's coming would not happen all at once, but would happen over time. A presence that slowly spread across a dark horizon like dawn. Signs would show up in places where they weren't expected. People would feel a spiritual hunger that they had never felt before. People would want to find meaning that money or technology couldn't give them. People's hearts would hurt, but they wouldn't know why. People would look for every possible answer, but only one would really make the pain go away. At first, the Messiah's presence would be a whisper in the human soul, but then it would become a voice that couldn't be ignored. Enoch also saw that lies were getting stronger. There would be false saviors who would promise quick comfort and freedom without having to take responsibility. Their charm would draw people in, and their power would be felt everywhere. A lot of people would follow them because their path looked easier. He knew that lies often look like things we know. The danger of those days would not come from clear evil, but from good that was twisted. People would question the truth until they got used to being confused. Values would change, making doing the right thing seem old-fashioned and making compromise seem smart. There were ideas that the skies themselves could speak, through signs and celestial events that would make people doubt that they were alone. The stars would fall. Patterns of light that had never been seen before would appear. Cities that were too tall would make the ground shake. The oceans would roar against the limits that had been set for them. All of nature would shout reminders that God is in charge of everything. Some would stop and think for a moment. Some people would become more stubborn and hold on to their false sense of control. The Messiah's shadow kept getting closer and closer, bringing both comfort and responsibility. The shadow was a sign of hope for those who wanted to know the truth. It felt like being exposed for those who hid behind lies. When perfect justice comes, everything that was hidden becomes known. Enoch saw people stuck between wanting and being afraid. They wanted to be free until they realized that meant giving up. Change always costs something. That tension would be the main thing that happened in the last days. He saw strong people rise up again, like giants. Not real Nephilim this time, but powerful leaders who were shaped by the same ancient rebellion. Their goals would carry the spirit of those who taught secret knowledge in the past. Knowledge would once again surpass wisdom. Once more, creativity would win over morality. People would make amazing things but forget what they mean. The cycle would start over because it was still hard to accept the lesson of limits. Everything the Watchers once brought back would come back, but in a new, modern form. Enoch's visions didn't drown in despair, though. The last chapters were full of hope that was stronger than any other sadness. Fear would not follow the Messiah into the world. He would come like light after a storm, showing what had always been there. Every unfair rule would fall apart. Every wound that was hidden would be healed. Every honest prayer would be answered. Enoch saw that people finally understood why they should have trusted the divine plan all along. He saw people putting down their weapons, not because they had to, but because peace finally made sense. He saw people crying tears of relief, not sadness, as they looked up. He saw joy so pure that it seemed like the world itself was breathing again. The Messiah's presence would do more than just bring back what was lost. It would change the world into what it was always meant to be. Death would no longer have power. Pain would no longer have a reason. Everyone would understand love. These prophecies didn't make the warnings any less important. It would take a lot of work to get back on track. The last days would put loyalties to the test and bring to light truths that had been kept secret for a long time. But Enoch thought that those who kept their hope would not be let down. He knew something that made every scary vision go away. Shadows don't scare light. It just waits for the right time to rise and beat them. Enoch's voice from long ago is the one that most softly whispers of hope. His writings show that love runs through all of creation, and that even when darkness spreads across the world, redemption will always be there. Enoch lived in a time when people were becoming more corrupt and afraid, but he was very close to God. He was shown that the world would not be left to deal with its problems alone in that deep connection. Instead, a Redeemer would come one day, a chosen one who would fix everything that was broken. Enoch's visions are all about this promise, and he writes about a future based on mercy instead of destruction. He learned about what comes after suffering by going on heavenly journeys and meeting angels. He saw that even those who have strayed far from the light can find their way back to it. Enoch talks about a person who is above everyone else and is called the Chosen One or Son of Man. This figure is shown as bright and eternal. Someone who has been hidden with God since the beginning of time, but is meant to show up when people need him the most. Enoch doesn't show him as a distant ruler who uses fear to keep people in line. Instead, he shows him as a kind guide who brings justice and gives grace. His presence is associated with healing, change, and peace. This picture gave people of all ages hope that a savior would one day bring back what was lost in Eden. The Son of Man would fight against the forces that had led people astray, help those who were being oppressed, and bring light to the darkest parts of the world. Many people later saw these early visions as signs of a Messiah, who would come to earth and live among people with love and humility, forgiving those who expected punishment. Enoch's writings never leave people hopeless, even though he saw the inevitable results of evil. His stories of judgment are mixed with a promise of renewal. He talks about a new time when being loyal to God brings prosperity and safety, when tears don't fall on the ground, and when peace covers the whole world. People don't have to be perfect to get this future. It is a gift from God, who loves creation so much that it won't give up on it. Enoch says that hope never goes away, even when the world is in chaos. The Redeemer will bring hearts back to the source of life and heal every wound the world has. This message is a lifeline for people who are going through hard times and are scared. It reminds us that light has already been planned to break through the darkness. Enoch also links the Messiah's coming to the restoration of what was broken by rebellion in the cosmos. In his visions, angels who went off course ruined the earth with violent and harmful knowledge. Enoch saw that the Chosen One would fix the damage that darkness had done to the world. He would fight the forces that once put humanity's future in danger and bring divine order back to where there had been chaos. Enoch stresses that justice is more than just punishment. It is the fixing of what has gone wrong. The Messiah's job is not to kill all people, but to protect them from enemies they can't see. This reassurance makes people more sure that redemption is always stronger than corruption. Another strong theme in Enoch's writings is how close God's love is. Enoch sees that the Redeemer and the Creator are very close to each other and share their hearts and plans. The Messiah is not an outsider who comes to enforce strict rules. He is the embodiment of divine compassion and is deeply connected to the struggles of people. Enoch's words make it sound like the Savior understands pain, sees the worth of each person, and takes away guilt instead of adding to it. This tenderness is what gives us hope for redemption. Even people who have messed up or gone off course are welcomed back into grace. Enoch's vision of the future is not just for a few special people. It is for everyone who is willing to let the One who heals into their hearts. Enoch sees the Messiah as a way to connect heaven and earth. He tells people things they have forgotten and gives people who are scared or tricked back their spiritual sight. He reminds the world of its purpose and worth. He shows people that they are never alone by walking with them. This closeness breaks the idea of a creator who is far away or silent. God enters history with love so strong that it changes every life it touches. The Son of Man does not come to divide the divine from the human, but to bring them back together. Heaven comes closer because he is there, not as a threat, but as a promise kept. Enoch's message is a constant reminder that every act of kindness, faith, and love has a purpose. The Redeemer sees even the smallest problems and keeps every tear as a valuable story. Nothing is left out or forgotten. He says that in the coming kingdom, joy will last, and relationships between people will show harmony that once seemed impossible. The picture of creation being restored is clear and comforting. Mountains, rivers, and skies become part of a new earth where pain and suffering go away. Enoch's words make people think of a home where peace is not just for a short time, but forever, and where people feel safe and like they belong. Enoch's story also has a strong sense of fate woven into it. The coming of the Messiah is not by chance. It is part of a promise that was made long before time started. History has a reason for moving toward this moment. Even when it seems like darkness is strong, it only makes the dawn come later. Enoch's confidence gives hope to people who feel like the world's problems are too much for them to handle. Hope is not foolish. It is based on a plan that has been around for a long time. There is no way to be saved. It is a sure thing that is just waiting for the right time. This truth gives you the strength to keep going even when the road looks hard. Enoch keeps saying that love is the force that runs the universe. Through all of his revelations, God saves people not out of duty or disappointment, but out of love. Love is at the heart of every promise, every prophecy, and every act of healing. The Messiah is the highest form of that love, coming into the world to heal instead of destroy. People who have given up on themselves can still start over. This story has a place for every heart. Every life is priceless. Enoch's voice, which comes from a long time ago, still speaks to people today. It reminds us that redemption is not just a comforting thought. It is real. It tells us that the pain in the world is not the end, and that every time we trust someone, we get closer to a peaceful future. His dreams tell us to keep hoping, even when we can't see the way forward. The Messiah's promise is that love will win in the end. The tale of Enoch weaves through ancient beliefs and lost history like a hidden thread. His writings were once very important and helped shape early ideas about angels, the afterlife, and divine justice. But today, a lot of people only hear his name in passing, like in Genesis or a single quote from the New Testament. It poses a profound inquiry that has captivated scholars, adherents, and inquirers for centuries. If Enoch's writings were so important, why did they disappear from the Bible? The answer is not easy to find. It is at the intersection of history, theology, politics, and fear. Enoch's voice spoke ideas that early communities loved, but that later people, who were in charge of making official doctrine, found troubling. His story didn't lack wonder or depth, so that's not why he disappeared. It was because his message went against what religious leaders were trying to do. Enoch's writings go boldly into the world we can't see. He talks about heavenly realms in great detail, including angelic hierarchies and cosmic rebellion. This was enough to set his work apart from other old texts that didn't explain these kinds of mysteries very well. The Book of Enoch talks about the Watchers, angels who came down to earth and taught people things they shouldn't have known, which caused chaos and corruption. It tells how giants, bad spirits, and spiritual warfare came to be. For many early believers, this answered important questions that Genesis didn't. It explained why evil was so strong on earth. But as the church's power grew, these vivid supernatural themes were seen as too extreme and dangerous for regular believers. Leaders were worried that these kinds of descriptions might make people want to learn more about the unseen world in an unhealthy way instead of having humble faith. People were also worried about how Enoch's teachings would affect angelology and divine judgment. His writings depict a structured heavenly court and a forthcoming Messiah, well in advance of the explicit emergence of such concepts in subsequent scripture. Some leaders were worried that accepting Enoch's prophecies would change how theology is controlled. People were worried about Enoch's brave claims about his own visions from heaven. People who trusted his authority too much might question the church's leadership or try to figure out what God wants in ways that are not in line with what the church says. A religious organization always protects its view of the truth, and Enoch's visions were seen as a threat to the way they wanted to guide doctrine. The changing balance between Jewish and early Christian beliefs also played a role in Enoch's exclusion. Enoch was respected in ancient Judaism, and his writings had an effect on groups that were connected to the Dead Sea Scrolls. After the temple was destroyed and Jewish communities were scattered, Religious leaders started to focus on texts that brought together identity and faith, and stay away from writings that were too mystical. People began to see Enoch's teachings about the Son of Man, resurrection, and final judgment as being more in line with new Christian beliefs than with mainstream Judaism. Taking Enoch out of the picture made it easier to see the differences between the two faiths as they grew into their own religious worlds. The Book of Enoch was very important to early Christians. It was cited by church fathers and even mentioned directly in the New Testament. Jude is well known for quoting Enoch's prophecy verbatim. A lot of people who believed thought his writings were spiritually strong and reliable, but over time, Christianity had trouble with different ways of understanding the faith. Church councils were set up to decide which teachings would be the official religion. Anything that didn't fit into that structure was called questionable, even if it had been respected before. Enoch's writings didn't go away because they weren't important. They were left out because their ideas were too strong in areas that were seen as controversial, like teachings about fallen angels, spiritual warfare, and the end of the world. There was also the problem of who wrote it. Many leaders said that Enoch himself could not have written the existing manuscripts because they were written hundreds of years after he died. This was the time when canon decisions were being made. This argument gave people who didn't like the content a good reason to turn it down. But the same question can be asked about many other old books that are part of the Bible. Selective standards were employed not solely for truth, but for domination. The formation of the canon was never just about keeping history alive. It was about shaping belief in a way that was both unified and easy to handle. Enoch's visions were just too big, too strange, and too brave. Instead of making questions more specific, they made them broader. The political climate of early Christianity also had an effect. As the church became an institution backed by the empire, the leaders wanted to create a single, clear theology that could spread throughout the world. Adding layers of supernatural complexity to texts or suggesting hidden knowledge outside of official teaching could have led to different interpretations of faith. People who were thought to be fringe or rebellious liked the Book of Enoch. For those in power, getting rid of Enoch meant getting rid of support for ideas that were hard for them to explain or control. Another thing that played a role was the delicate balance between spiritual guidance and spiritual fear. Enoch's writings show where evil comes from in a way that makes people understand it better, but this can also be scary. The idea that angels could fall, teach people secret knowledge, and cause trouble makes the world seem more dangerous and unpredictable than leaders wanted people to believe. People liked simpler answers better. People thought that mystery was best kept hidden. Enoch shone too brightly. His visions were like a mirror that showed the unseen world and how spiritual forces are always at work in people's lives. Some people wanted that mirror to be hidden. Even though people tried to stop him from writing, Enoch's voice never completely went away. In Ethiopia, his book lived on thanks to a community that respected its wisdom for hundreds of years. Ethiopian Christianity still includes the Book of Enoch in its Bible. This is a strong reminder that a text's spiritual value does not go away when one branch of faith rejects it. The Dead Sea Scrolls were found in the 20th century, and they brought Enoch's writings back to the world's attention, showing that they were not strange works, but important to ancient belief. Interest came back with a new fire. Scholars and seekers today look into Enoch's teachings to find lost ways of thinking about divine mysteries and the fate of humans. It is not just a matter of history why Enoch was taken away. It makes you think more deeply about who gets to decide what truth lives on. Spiritual politics have always had an effect on holy texts. People who believed in ideas that were too daring, too supernatural, or too empowering for regular people often kept them hidden. Enoch reminds us that not all of the best advice is easy to find. His writings talk about the never-ending fight between good and evil, the coming of a savior, and how big God's plan for heaven is. These themes used to help people believe in God. His book was kept from millions for hundreds of years, but people still want to know what he saw. Taking Enoch out of the Bible does not make him less important. If anything, it shows how deep and hard his message really is. His story encourages us to transcend our comfort zones and contemplate that revelation may surpass institutional approval. His writing reminds people that mystery isn't something to be afraid of. It is a way to learn more about something. Even though his book is no longer read, Enoch is still a link between people and the heavens. He is a witness to the unseen reality that shapes every moment of life on earth. Enoch's story seems old, but his voice sounds like it hasn't changed in hundreds of years. The world today isn't that different from the one he warned about. People still want power without wisdom, still fight against forces they can't see, and still want to feel like they belong in a universe that is full of mystery. His writings show that people are always trying to reach for something better. That search can sometimes lead to light. It can also lead to failure. Enoch serves as a reminder that the line between guidance and destruction can be thin. When knowledge is sought without humility to anchor it, his story teaches us that moral limits are not there to stop progress, but to protect the things that are sacred in us. Curiosity and progress are good things in today's world, but Enoch wants everyone to ask an important question. What is this knowledge going to help us with? Something that makes life better, or something that slowly breaks it down? Powerful beings took over Enoch's world and forgot about being responsible. The Watchers wanted to help people, but they crossed divine lines in their haste and caused problems that got out of hand. It can feel like today's search for new ideas is the same. Technology moves faster than morals can keep up with. People look into AI, genetic modification, and surveillance tools without fully understanding where these paths will take them. Enoch's writings show how quickly pride can turn into a burden when it takes the place of responsibility. He says that good intentions can be dangerous when someone thinks they are above the law. This doesn't mean that progress isn't happening. It is a call to move forward with understanding, kindness, and respect for how fragile life is. His lessons stress the need to find a balance between expanding what people can do and remembering why they should do it. There is also a lesson about Enoch's life that is personal. He lived in a world full of corruption, but he chose to be faithful. He walked with God even when other people did. His life shows that being good doesn't mean being perfect or showing off. It wants things to stay the same. It tells you to listen to your conscience even when there is a lot of noise. Enoch didn't let the decay around him shape who he became. Instead, he stayed true to a higher purpose. A lot of people still need that quiet courage today. A lot of people have trouble with stress, loneliness, and moral ambiguity. The world often rewards taking the easy way out and making deals. Enoch's story is a constant reminder that honesty is important even when no one is watching. Staying true to what is right, even when it seems hard, is a sign of strength. Enoch also gives hope to people who feel small in a world full of powerful forces. He wasn't a king, a warrior, or a great leader. He was just a man who really wanted to learn. But he was taken up to heaven and shown things that no one could understand. His rise shows that status and fame don't make someone spiritually important. It is formed by a yearning for truth and proximity to the divine. A lot of people today feel like they don't matter. It's easy to doubt your worth when you compare yourself to others and hear noise all the time. Enoch's story gently pushes back against that doubt by saying that everyone has the ability to connect with the highest purpose if they keep their heart open. His writings reveal profound truths about the unseen realm, and contemporary readers continue to derive solace from those insights. People still want to know what happens after death, what angels are like, why evil exists, and how justice will finally win. Enoch openly answered these questions, giving us a glimpse of divine order and future restoration. The message is still strong, even if some parts seem like they are meant to be symbolic or poetic. The universe is not random or cold. There is order, responsibility, and the final triumph over evil. This comfort is like a lantern for people who are afraid of the world's chaos. It pushes back despair. Another reason Enoch is important today is that he shows where human temptation comes from. People were not tempted by the Watcher's obvious destruction. They gave people knowledge, beauty, and strength. They fell because they forgot that gifts should help good things, not take over. The same thing is happening now. Temptations rarely appear dangerous. They seem useful, fun, or needed. Desire can turn into an obsession, which makes the danger greater, whether it's for power, pleasure, control, or recognition. Enoch's story has a way of taking off masks and showing the effects that are hidden beneath surface attraction. It makes people aware of the unseen forces that affect how people act and warns them not to give up their inner strength for short-term benefits. Accountability is the emotional heart of Enoch's writings. The Watchers only begged for mercy after they saw the damage they had done. They wanted to be forgiven, but they didn't want to take responsibility. This is like a mirror for today's society, where people often shift blame instead of taking it. Instead of running away from mistakes, you should own up to them. Enoch acted as a mediator not by condoning wrongdoing, but by recognizing the significance of genuine repentance. His role shows that redemption is possible for people who are willing to face the truth. The message still speaks to anyone who is trying to heal or start over after making mistakes. Many people who believe in Enoch's prophecies about a coming Messiah see him as a source of hope. He saw that humanity's story does not end in destruction. Through a chosen Savior, love and restoration rise, and justice wins over all corruption. This faith that looks to the future still gives strength to those who are tired of the suffering and violence in the world. Knowing that there is hope for renewal gives you the strength to get through hard times. It reminds people that faith isn't just hoping for the best. It is an expectation based on a higher purpose that has been seen in visions for a long time, even before modern times. Finding Enoch's writings again in the last 100 years makes him even more important. His message seemed to be sleeping in the ground, waiting for the world to need it again. That time makes you think. As people become more creative and powerful than ever before, Enoch comes back to remind everyone to protect the soul of progress. His return seems like a sign from history to not make the same mistakes again. He still matters because he keeps people thinking. How do we know when curiosity turns into corruption? How do we keep innocence safe in a world that likes to show things off? What kinds of structures shape the battles we can't see around us? How do we stay humble while looking into the extraordinary? Enoch never meant to make people afraid of the supernatural. His message makes people feel awe, caution, and gratitude. He wants people to realize that humanity is part of a bigger story in the universe. Finally, Enoch is important because his story shows how quiet faithfulness can be strong. He shows that in a world that cares too much about power, the strongest force for change often comes from a heart that is in line with what is good. His walk with God shows that you can have a close relationship with God in everyday life. His visions make everyone remember that life is much more than what we can see. His strength inspires people to see moral limits not as chains, but as a way to protect their deepest selves. Enoch is still important today because he is balanced. He respects wisdom and loves knowledge. He knows there is danger, but he still has hope. He shows judgment while also pointing to redemption. His life goes against the common idea that progress is the only way to save the world. Progress without a moral compass is just a repeat of old tragedies. Enoch tells people to rise up responsibly, grow with humility, and remember that spiritual foundations shape the future much more than unchecked ambition ever could. As this old story comes to a soft and quiet end, it feels almost like sitting under a calm night sky and thinking about everything that has been said. Enoch's journey has taken us through long-lost times, heavenly mysteries, lost wisdom, and visions of hope that still give life to the world today. Knowing that there was once a man who chose to walk with the divine, instead of following a path of destruction, is comforting in a world full of chaos and corruption. His life tells us that even the smallest acts of faith can have effects that last long after we die. His story is like a soft hand on the shoulder when the world feels heavy or uncertain. It reminds us that goodness has never been alone. There is always someone watching from above, and there is always a plan in motion. Even when you are crying or confused, Enoch saw worlds that were full of bright light and depth that he couldn't even imagine. He entered worlds where every star seemed to sing and every breath had meaning. He talked to angels and saw the whole circle of time, from the beginning to the end. But even with all that glory, he never forgot about people. His writing isn't like cold prophecies carved into stone. They are messages of love, caution, and hope for everyone who has a hard time on this planet. Sometimes we might feel lost in our daily lives and wonder if we matter in such a big universe. Enoch's story tells us that we are known. People see us. We are part of something bigger that goes beyond every fear and shadow. Thinking about that can bring you peace that is deeper than sleep as the night goes on. Let your mind go back to the old days when angels walked the earth and a simple man was taken up into the sky. Imagine the bright paths of the heavens, the quiet rooms of divine judgment, and the sound of wings flapping in the distance. Even when the world below seems broken, you can feel at peace knowing that there is order. Enoch came back with promises of healing and visions of a future where love and truth will always win. This is more than just a story to read before bed. It reminds us that the time we spend on this earth is part of something that will never end. The end of darkness is never the end. The dawn is waiting on the other side of every horizon. Let your heart relax into the peace of that promise. If tonight brought you peace and made it easier for you to breathe, then let that peace stay with you as you fall asleep. The old story goes on, written in the quiet parts of your soul where faith grows. There are a lot more mysteries to solve, and stories that will make you think. There are more videos that will help you learn about more sacred histories when you're ready. For now, just relax and know that you are part of a story that is being watched over from above. Thanks for taking the time to be here. If you liked this gentle look at Enoch's writings and what they mean for our world today, please stay in touch. You can sign up for this channel so that you always have a peaceful place to go back to when you need to calm down or get ideas. You can like this video and leave your thoughts or comments below. Please let us know where you are watching from and what time of night it is. It's always amazing to see how many hearts around the world are resting together in the same old story. Sleep well, and may peace and wisdom be with you all night.